4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the Play Show, yet not overly ostentatious studios of CBS Sports Radio here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor, 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to a Thursday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course streaming on YouTube, youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio. 855-212-4CBS is the number to jump on in, 855-212-4227. And you could always get at me on Instagram where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. Got Moist Mike, Stuart Kovacs rocking and rolling with me all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk is going to stop by 2 hours from now at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. Appreciate Bart Winkler for filling in yesterday for me. During the show, late in the show on Tuesday, at about 5:30, my stomach started to hurt me. To just be fully transparent, I thought I just had to go to the bathroom. And little did I know, from about 8 p.m. to 2 in the morning, I was curled up in a ball, and I was not feeling well, so I had to call out sick. I actually think that is the first time I've used a sick day since hosting here at CBS Sports Radio since I got COVID, and that was back in November or December of 2021. It takes a lot for me to miss a show during football season, so I had to recharge the batteries, feel like $1 million today, and ready to go. But it's never fun when you do get sick. But thankfully, it was only a 24-hour bug. And I'm just hoping we don't start dropping like flies around here. Because once you get that stomach bug, you find out, oh, so-and-so had the stomach bug a week ago. And then, oh, another coworker got it the night before as well. And then you usually know how that works when germs start to spread around an office, especially when we're just such a close tightly knit office like we are here at CBS Sports Radio, inside the Odyssey family, also sharing the same space with WFAN. So I'm going to try to not yell today. I am going to try to be very calm, very patient, maybe be like J.J. McCarthy and be all about Zen. But there was a lot of yelling on Monday about the drama Dallas choking the Cowboys. There was a lot of yelling on Tuesday after the Eagles put an embarrassing performance the night before and they quit in the wild card round up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And that was my approach walking into the studio, and that's how I hope this show still goes. But the Dallas Cowboys, let me just flat out say it right out of the gate, they are making not only a mistake, they are making a massive mistake by keeping Mike McCarthy as their head football coach. And if you don't believe me, let's play you some audio right out of the gate. And this is what I think is going to make me just go absolutely berserk. And I'm going to try to be calm. I'm going to try to be patient. I'm going to try to just speak very soft today. Because I do think like Jerry Jones or Jeffrey Lurie, they put something in my food to make me get this stomach bug and have this problem, how much I've just been shredding their teams the last 2 days. But this is Mike McCarthy when they talk about his playoff record in Dallas. And this is just the laughable, jackassery, ridiculous quote from Mike McCarthy.
We have established a championship program. It's just not the world championship yet. We know how to win. We know how to train to win. We have the right people, but we have not crossed the threshold of winning playoff games. And it's extremely disappointing to be sitting here talking about it. But I know how to win, and we will get over that threshold. I have total confidence in it, and that's why I'm standing here today.
Mike, you would have been better off just not doing the press conference. All right? You've been brought back as the coach. You've been retained as the coach. You are not brought back on an extension, so you are a lame duck coach until told otherwise. It's put up or shut up time for the drama Dallas choking Cowboys. But to give the quote of, we have brought in a championship program, or we brought in a championship culture, just not a world championship culture, what the heck does that mean? Seriously, what does that mean? A championship culture of what? This team, the farthest they have gone is the second round to the playoffs, where they practically had a bye last year going up against an 8-9 football team that won their division. So what championship culture have you brought? And I have been someone, the last 3 years, more times than not, I have defended Mike McCarthy. I have told you, in the public world of perception, Mike McCarthy is a better football coach than what he gives credit for and what he gets credit for. And Mike McCarthy has had three double-digit win seasons in his 3 years as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. But when you lose to the Green Bay Packers, and not only lose to the Green Bay Packers, but get annihilated by the Green Bay Packers, and that's 2 out of 3 years of you being the head coach where your team just wasn't ready for a playoff game, if I'm serious about advancing this team and having this team take the next step to actually be a championship team, you got to get rid of Mike McCarthy, especially when there are, without a doubt, 4 better candidates currently that could walk in tomorrow with the Dallas Cowboys and give them a better shot than Mike McCarthy. Bill Belichick, Jim Harbaugh, Pete Carroll, and yes, even Mike Vrabel, who I know Mike Vrabel has not won a Super Bowl, but he got Ryan Tannehill to be a quarterback of a team that had the number 1 seed, and then in another year got them to an AFC title game. And the bar, I'm not even setting as a high one for the Cowboys. All I'm saying is you got to get to an NFC title game. And this year, that was attainable. And this is an organization that has not been to an NFC title game, forget about a Super Bowl, but just an NFC title game, since the 1995 season. And I don't want to pile on Jerry Jones today, because I think Jerry Jones has put together a really good roster. And I think some of the takes and some of the thoughts about Jerry Jones are misconstrued. Jerry Jones as a general manager is not as bad as what you think. And Jerry Jones is not as impatient as you think. And we've talked about this. Like, McCarthy shouldn't be brought back, but I can't say it's surprising that the Cowboys took a deep breath and elected to bring him back. Because look how loyal they were to Jason Garrett before they finally said enough is enough. We can no longer defend Jason Garrett being the head football coach of this team. And oh yeah, by the way, his contract did run out. But when I look at Jerry Jones, I've had this belief for a while, and I think it's 110% true. Jerry Jones, in this last 15, 20 years of being the Cowboys owner, and just that time period, he's not focused on winning another championship. Like, people could say, oh, Jerry wants to get another ring before he dies and all that. Jerry Jones is focused on headlines. Jerry Jones is focused on noise. Jerry Jones is focused on attention. Jerry Jones is focused on drama. That's what he is. I don't even think he gives a rat's ass about victories anymore. I think he cares more about the storylines and the off-the-field attention and the coverage of his team rather than the production of his team on the field. Because what Jerry Jones said after the game this past weekend, and the tone that he gave after that game of shock, stunned disbelief, him being annoyed and him being upset, is the complete antithesis of what the move was and what was announced yesterday, that the drama Dallas choking Cowboys are bringing back Mike McCarthy. And Mike, you have been around this league way too long to get in front of a microphone after being brought back and have the audacity to think I'm stupid, to think the listeners are stupid, and also those cockroach Cowboy fans are stupid. Sometimes they are stupid. But when you say we have brought a championship culture, just not a world championship culture, what the bleep does that, what does that mean? That is one of the dumbest things I have ever heard a football coach say. And trust me, there is a lot of stupid things that football coaches say when they are losing to try to justify their losing. You would have been better off just not doing the press conference. You're basically spitting in our faces and trying to tell us something is reality and something is true when we know it's fake, when we know it's false. It's kind of like that person that knows they have to lose like 45 pounds, and I've been in that spot before. And a relative goes, oh, you look good. And you know that you haven't been cutting the weight, but you go, yeah, I've been really working hard at the gym. I've created a really healthy lifestyle. I brought a healthy mindset to the new Zach Gelb or something like that. But when you step on the scale, the results are the results. And I've been there. I've lost 75, 80 pounds in the last 3-4 years. There's been times family members say I look good, and I know I wasn't putting in the work. I know the results weren't there. I was able to hide behind it because I'm such a tall guy. But then it's like you step on the scale, and that's what the results say you are. And when Mike McCarthy steps on the scale, and when the Cowboys step on the scale, guess what it says? It says frauds. It says they're not going to win a Super Bowl. It says that they're not going to get to an NFC title game. And I'm not only directing the blame to Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy isn't the only one that is a part of the problems of the drama Dallas choking Cowboys. You could equally blame Dak Prescott. You could blame that defense for everyone touting them for beating up on a bunch of crappy teams as being this great defense when you knew that they were just good and they weren't great. There's a lot of blame to go around. But when the coach tells me he's brought a championship culture and the farthest they have gone is in the second round of the playoffs, you're not close. You may think you're close. You may be thinking that you're close to breaking through, but you're not. I don't trust your quarterback. I don't trust your defense. And I don't trust the head coach. That's a problem. You needed someone to come in. And the Cowboys, they do have a foundation. It's not like this is a team that it's a total rebuild forever that comes in, but they need a new voice. And to punt this decision and to kick the can down the road and to bring McCarthy back, and he didn't get a contract extension, so for everything that we know now, he is going to be a lame duck coach. What are you expecting to change? What is going to change? Because I can guarantee you this. The Dallas Cowboys next year, it's going to be January. It's going to be January of 2025. We're going to be hosting a radio show here on CBS Sports Radio. And guess what we're going to be talking about? The Cowboys are going to have an embarrassing playoff defeat. That's just what's going to happen. 2 out of the last 3 years. San Francisco 2022, he admitted they weren't ready. Then this year, up against an inferior Green Bay Packers team. They got punched in the mouth from the start, and they had no clue how to counter. And now, when you have a good team, but they still have a long ways to go to become a great team, this is the guy that you're going to double down on? This is the guy that you're going to put your poker chips on, and you think you're going to get a different outcome? When you have Bill Belichick, when you have Pete Carroll, when you have Jim Harbaugh available? Come on, guys. It ain't going to work. This is not going to be a turnaround. This is not going to be successful. And I know we fire or we ask for a lot of coaches to get fired on this show, but I'm fair about it. I only do that when I think it's necessary. And when you look at the Cowboys, I will guarantee it. I've never been more confident about something in my life that next year we'll talk about them either tapping out in the wild card round or the divisional round. Because the Cowboys are telling you there isn't a problem. The Cowboys are telling you, oh, 1 year we're going to punch through. 1 year we're going to pull through and we're going to break through and we're going to get to the Super Bowl or we're going to get to an NFC title game. Well, guess what? I've been hearing that since 1995. I've been hearing that since I came out of the womb, for crying out loud. Oh, yeah, it's going to be our year. Oh, the Cowboys are going to get it together. Oh, the Cowboys have 12, 13 wins. Oh, Tony Romo's going to lead them to an NFC title game. Oh, Dak Prescott's going to lead them to an NFC title game. Oh, Mike McCarthy's going to go here. Bill Parcells going to do this. And what is it? Death, taxes, and Dallas disappointment in the postseason. Over and over and over again. Those are the three constants in life. And I'm not, with what I'm seeing right now for Mike McCarthy, and what the Cowboys did today and what the Jones family did and announced that he's coming back, expect the same endless cycle of incompetence. Well, they'll play the part. They'll look the part at sometimes during the regular season. Cowboys fans will infiltrate this show at 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. They'll say, Zach, how about them Cowboys? Zach, oh, you getting nervous? And I'll sit there, as I did all throughout this year, and I'll say, okay, yeah, maybe 1 week you'll be number 2 in the Zach Gelb Show power rankings. But when it actually matters, when the pressure heats up in intensity, and you have to go win a big game in the playoffs, and you have to do it consistently to get to the Super Bowl and NFC Championship game, the Cowboys will choke. Because you could always guarantee a Cowboys choke job is coming in January. So now the Cowboys kick the can down the road. we'll kick the can down the road as well, and we'll look forward to their next embarrassing playoff performance come January of 2025. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio, so we know Bill Belichick will not be going to Dallas because the Cowboys are running back Mr. Championship culture, but not World Championship culture, and Mike McCarthy as their HC. Bill Belichick has a second interview with the Atlanta Falcons. It's basically 28-3 right now, and we'll make sure that the Falcons don't blow it in hiring Bill Belichick. But let's just assume Bill gets the job in Atlanta. Who should be Bill's quarterback? I have a name. We'll discuss and tell you who that name is when we return in 5 minutes.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. 30 seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio.
Where are all you cockroach Cowboy fans that all year said, Zach, you're not giving this team any credit. Zach, this team is really damn good. Zach, this team's going to make their first NFC title game since 1995. Where are you? You're silent. You're exterminated. The cockroaches are exterminated. And it happens every year.
Here's Zach Gelb.
You can stream the NFL on Westwood One for free, sponsored by AutoZone. All season long, you listen to every Westwood One broadcast of the NFL live on the NFL app by asking Alexa to open Westwood One Sports, or on the Odyssey app. Get in the zone, AutoZone. AutoZone's free battery testing and charging is available for free at your local AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Restrictions apply. Like, when I whisper, I still think it's significantly louder than when most people are talking at a regular pace. But just after hearing that rejoin played where I'm losing my mind screaming and yelling, and then I practically just whispered a monologue for the last 15 minutes. I don't know about you, Samter. Maybe we'll do like once a week. I'll do like just a 15-minute chill out monologue, kind of like a Zen moment. Because sometimes I do feel like I'm like an animal and like in a circus, and they're just like perform, and I have to yell, I have to go nuts, I have to go crazy.
Should I make me the ringleader?
Yeah, pretty much. Oh, there are some days where I feel like intentionally say things, or you like to needle a little bit, where you will say things that you know will set me off, and then you have like this devilish look in your eyes, like, see, I gotcha. But I do think that was very peaceful, the last 15 minutes of radio. And I think it was a different thing that I'm used to doing, and I feel pretty damn great about it. I don't know. Maybe I just have to have a stomach issue once a week that will zap the energy out of me.
Zen Zach
on CBS Sports Radio.
Whisper Wednesdays.
Whisper Wednesday.
Hi, guys. This is Zach Gelb.
Now you're making it sound sexual.
The palatial, yet not overly ostentatious studios here at 345 Hudson Street. You can get at me at Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or the cesspool of Twitter.
Now I may call it X for the segment. By the way, the Los Angeles Chargers are interviewing Mike Vrabel. Also, according to Ian Rappaport, the Chargers have completed an in-person interview with former Stanford coach David Shaw for their head coaching job. And I also read, I forget who the reporter was, Cliff Kingsbury is interviewing for the vacant OC job with the Chicago Bears. So pretty much, Samter, right? That gives you the indication that Caleb Williams, where Cliff Kingsbury was at USC last year, is probably going to be the number 1 overall pick by the Chicago Bears, I would imagine.
If he gets hired, different, then maybe.
Yeah.
Being interviewed, not necessarily. I mean, he is a former NFL and college head coach. He is an offensive guru. Could I see Cliff Kingsbury being paired with Justin Fields? Sure. Doesn't necessarily. I mean, he spent a year with Caleb Williams, and not Caleb Williams' best year. So if you're actually looking for Caleb Williams to be your quarterback, then maybe Cliff Kingsbury's not the guy you want.
I do not think, and I've been a proponent, right, of the Bears should keep Justin Fields. They should get Marvin Harrison Jr. They should trade back in the draft a little bit, and they should acquire future resources. I've been of that mindset now for the last month and a half. Sometimes there's a conversation of what should happen and what will happen. And a lot of times you get in front of a microphone and say what should happen, people then often confuse you for saying that is what is going to happen, that what will happen. I do believe that the Bears should keep Fields. I believe that they should trade back to 2 or 3, get some future resources, and still get the best of both worlds and draft Marvin Harrison Jr. But with all that being said, I think ultimately the Chicago Bears, who've kind of alluded to it in press conferences, if you kind of read what's in between the lines and see what's in between the lines, that in all likelihood, Justin Fields is going to get traded this offseason. So with that being said, Bill Belichick has now completed or is going to interview for the second time with the Atlanta Falcons. I still feel like that's more so Bill interviewing the Falcons and the Falcons interviewing him. But I do believe that Belichick will get that job. I will be surprised if Bill Belichick is not coaching the Atlanta Falcons next year, because where else is he going to go? Like, I do believe the Chargers would be a great destination for him, but it doesn't appear like Belichick to the Chargers have picked up any steam whatsoever. So now you look at Atlanta, and Bill is a strange dude. Bill is a strange bird. And I think most people will be like, all right, Atlanta, you're never going to win a Super Bowl there. But Atlanta is a good destination. Like, their defense improved vastly last year under their first-year defensive coordinator, Ryan Nielsen. Then you look at the offense. They have a lot of good players. Arthur Smith, who surprisingly is an offensive mind, just didn't know how to use them correctly. Like, I thought Drake London is a phenomenal player. He showed that at times this past year. How Kyle Pitts hasn't reached his potential this year, it doesn't really make sense so far in his young career because of how athletic he is. And I know how much people love to crap on Bill for the offensive problems the last few years at one Patriot Place. But one thing Bill knows how to use is the tight ends. Like, we have seen that. I know he's I'm trying to say a word that I probably can't say on the radio, a POS in Aaron Hernandez, who's no longer alive. But Bill, when Aaron Hernandez was on the field, saw something from an athleticism standpoint at that position that we've never seen before. And Gronk, right, when he got drafted, it was, well, he always gets injured, all the work ethic concerns, and look what Rob Gronkowski turned out to be, arguably the greatest tight end of all time. Martellus Bennett had some success in New England as well for that 1 year with the football team. So I know it hasn't always been perfect with the tight ends, but Bill knows how to use the tight ends as well. So I would think just with Bill walking in, without knowing who his quarterback's going to be, and we'll get to that in just a second, that Bijan Robinson's going to vastly improve under Bill Belichick because Bill will hand him the ball 25 times a game, something that Arthur Smith, I still don't know why for the life of me, he didn't do. You still have Tyler Algier there, who is a really good, underrated back in his last 2 years in the league. You got Drake London, you got Kyle Pitts. There's enough pieces there where if I picked, and I did pick, the Falcons to win the division last year before the season started, that when you look into next year, like, what are the things in the NFC that you're really confident about? Like, the Bucs had a good year. It's not like the Bucs are unbeatable, even though they made it to the second round of the playoffs. The Carolina Panthers have a toxic owner, and they're still many years away from turning it around. The Saints, oh, geez. Did you hear Mickey Loomis the other day? He's trying to set up a path where Dennis Allen's going to be like the next Lombardi or Bill Walsh or Bill Belichick in this league. Like, don't get me wrong, Dennis Allen's not a horrible football coach, but I don't think anyone's going to believe that Dennis Allen is in his next 2-3 years of being the head football coach of the Saints, if he even gets that far, is going to end up the start and the beginnings and the origins of him being a Pro Football Hall of Famer. Like, pump the brakes a little bit, Mickey Loomis. So I look at that division as very attainable, very winnable. And if you could just find a game manager there and just let that guy be a game manager and feed off the run game with Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, and you find a way to use the athleticism of Kyle Pitts and Drake London continues to emerge as a young budding star, you could win with the Falcons. Now, let me be clear, because I want to be like Mike McCarthy. There's different standards of winning. Like, for Atlanta, making the playoffs next year would be a winning, successful season. I don't think Bill is going to win a Super Bowl with the Atlanta Falcons, but it's a solid foundation where he could go win 9 or 10, maybe at most 11 games a year, as long as he hits on an average or an above average kind of quarterback. And I look at two names right away. Kirk Cousins is a free agent. I know a lot of people are probably going to say Kirk goes back to Minnesota, and Minnesota kind of realized that this year, that life is better with Kirk than without Kirk, even though a lot of times when Kirk is the quarterback of Minnesota, they complain about him. But with him hitting free agency, Atlanta could go make a run at him. And you put Kirk Cousins with Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Tyler Algier, Bijan Robinson, and that young up-and-coming defense in Atlanta coached by Bill Belichick, that team would easily be everyone's pick to win the NFC South next year. And if you can't get Kirk, and you maybe want to trade a second-round pick, because that's probably what would be the going rate with maybe some conditions in it, and let's say that the Bears really do want to trade Justin Fields, I would love to see Justin Fields in Atlanta. A young quarterback that probably was more so, got failed because of the poor system in Chicago, and Chicago's been ruining quarterbacks forever. You put Justin Fields with those weapons right away, and look what happened to Justin Fields this year. He resembled like someone that could be a quarterback when he got DJ Moore. You put him with those four names that I've mentioned, I would also pick the Falcons next year to win the NFC South if they got Justin Fields. So for Bill, I don't believe that he's going to win a Super Bowl in Atlanta, but I do believe that there is enough there where he could consistently be above 500 in Atlanta, be a playoff team, win that division in an NFC South that has real estate that is vacant right now, and it's waiting for someone to constantly rule that real estate. I do believe that Bill can take a firm control and can latch on to the NFC South and have success there. But you still got to get a quarterback, because it's not Taylor Heineke, it's not Desmond Ridder, but I'm not even saying swing for like the greatest names ever. I'm talking about Kirk Cousins and Justin Fields. I think both of those names are very attainable to go get this year inside the NFC South for the Atlanta Falcons. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Let's go to David in Miami next up on CBS Sports Radio. Dave, what's shaking?
Hey, what's going on, brother? How are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
I was disappointed yesterday when I tuned in and you weren't on.
Oh, yeah. Well, so I was curled up in a ball and I was sick. So, even though I'm here every day or almost every day, that happens.
Yeah. I'm in the same boat today. I'm forced to go to work. Yeah, but I was disappointed with your filling guy, filling Frank, whoever he was. But anyway,
why were you disappointed with him?
I don't know, man. He didn't have your personality.
Well, I appreciate that, but Bart Winkler does a phenomenal job. I'm a big fan of Bart. I think you should show him a little more respect and call him Phil and Frank, Dave.
It's like talking to my grandfather. But you have a fire amongst you, which I prefer. But I'm not trying to talk bad about either one.
Gotcha.
But the thing is that the thing with Dallas, hopefully we put it to rest this week, but I'm sure it's going to linger. The thing with McCarthy is that he's a great yes man, and he could probably have that job to the day he dies, but Dallas fans should be used to it, because after Switzer left, it's been downhill. So that's all I got, sir. You have a good day. Thanks for taking my call.
You got it, Dave. Hopefully you feel better, too. I won't crap on any of your coworkers or anything like that. That was a little bit of an awkward phone call now, but Dave's usually a good caller. Everyone's entitled to their own opinions, but if you're going to, compliment me, I do take those compliments free of charge, no problem. But you don't have to diss other people when you compliment me. I disagree, though, that McCarthy could have that job until the day he dies. Because if that was the case, the Cowboys would have extended him. To my knowledge, the Cowboys aren't going to extend him right now. Like, that could change at the end of the week. That could change next week. We could get that news item come a few weeks from now. But from all things that I've read and all things I've heard, McCarthy's not getting an extension. So that's basically saying you better find a way to advance this thing forward this year. And if you don't, then you're going to be shown the door this time next year. And McCarthy's a good coach. Like, I'm not saying that McCarthy stinks and McCarthy's horrible, but it's all about time and place. And right now, if you want to move this thing forward with what I've seen 2 of the last 3 years in the postseason, and, just getting one victory up against the lousy Bucks at the time, I'm not sitting here saying that this is the best guy for the job. There are better guys out there, especially with credentials that are superior than what Mike McCarthy has. And McCarthy's won a Super Bowl in this league. But Pete Carroll has better credentials. Jim Harbaugh, better credentials. Bill Belichick, by far and away, better credentials. And I do believe those three guys could have put the Cowboys in a better position to move this thing forward. All right, it is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We'll take a timeout. We'll come on back with a Thursday Zach Gelb Show PSA. Update time first. Here is the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flag.
And it's sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive, saving nearly $750 on average. Call or click today to find out if they can save you hundreds on your car insurance. So far, the only team to express an interest in Bill Belichick is the Falcons. They seem to be really interested, as the former Patriots coach will reportedly have a second interview with the team this weekend after meeting one-on-one with owner Arthur Blank. Mike Vrabel, perhaps looking to jump right back in, is interviewed with the Chargers regarding their vacancy, while the Steelers are looking for an offensive coordinator, and head coach Mike Tomlin said they'll likely look outside the organization for one, and they'll also bring in some competition for Kenny Pickett. Tomlin also saying he has a year left on his deal and is open to talking about an extension. The Warriors and Mavericks scheduled for tomorrow night has been postponed following the death of assistant coach Dejan Milojevic yesterday. The top teams in the West have been a pleasant surprise this year. The Timberwolves lead the way and go for their 30th win tonight against the Grizzlies at home. The Thunder are 2 games back and will take on the Jazz in Utah, which has won 6 in a row. I'm Rich Acker.
Hey, this is Bart Winkler. I've got a new show weeknights. Join me for the Bart Winkler Show starting at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, only on CBS Sports Radio.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. $45 seconds remaining. $30 seconds remaining. $15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
This portion of the show is sponsored by the new Hyundai Tucson, available with complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Now it's easy to use your phone to control your Tucson. All righty, Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio. Last week we were going to do this, but then all hell broke loose in the sports world with Pete Carroll, then Nick Saban, then Bill Belichick. It was just one after another, after another, after another. And I think it was our pal Delta 9 Brian who was like, it's a Thursday. Where's this Zach Gelb Show PSA? And I was like, Brian, as much as I love you, I go, a day like this, we can't do a Zach Gelb Show PSA because we have to literally, when three legends, just one after another, have changes, I would probably get fired if I didn't spend all 3 hours of the show talking about, in some order, Carroll, Saban, and then Bill Belichick. But let's get to, after 1 week off, a Thursday, Zach Gelb Show PSA.
Warning.
It's a Thursday. What do you have to say? It's the weekly Zach Gelb Show PSA.
Who's with me? Let's go! Come on! Hey!
So I remember one of the more exciting football games I'd ever watched as a kid was in 2006. It was divisional round weekend. It was between the Patriots and the Chargers. The Chargers had a behemoth of a team. They were like 14-2, coming off a bye. And the Patriots walked into Qualcomm Stadium, I believe it was, in San Diego when they were the San Diego Superchargers. Go, Chargers, go. And the Chargers should have won the game. Tom Brady threw a pick. Troy Brown punched out the football. The Patriots ended up getting the football back. The Chargers had a chance at the end with a long field goal. I want to say it was Nate Kading who missed the kick. And after the game, the Patriot players mocked Sean Merriman. Sean Merriman, we know, friend to show. He does the famous lights out dance. And guys like Vince Wilfork, Roosevelt Colvin, they were walking into the locker room. They were doing the lights out dance. And it led to this classic soundbite of LaDainian Tomlinson, LT, who was crying, saying, you know, the Patriots are classless, and it all starts with the coach. It all starts with their coach. So I kind of said at the time, if you do a celebration like that, don't be surprised when it gets thrown back in your face. And I'm always a pro-celebration guy when you don't end up being on the right side of the game and you're on the wrong side of the game and you end up losing. So we all know, right, horns up, hook 'em. Well, anytime Texas loses, the other team, and it's low-hanging fruit, it's easy, they go, horns down. And it's something that's so innocuous. It's something that is not that big of a deal. And for whatever reason, when you are associated with Texas, people freak out. Players, coaches, previous conferences that they were a part of, they freak out when you do the horns down sign, which I don't get. Like, you're really going to get that annoyed when you go hook 'em with the horns up when someone basically goes horns down? It almost be like you say to a kid, like, nah. You do something like that. It's so trivial. It's so stupid. It's not a big deal. Well, Rodney Terry, who got the job last year, when Chris Beard had his situation up the court where he got fired, eventually resurfaced at Ole Miss. And Rodney Terry did a good job as the head coach of Texas. And from there, he got the job full-time. So this is his first full season as the head coach, with him taking over last year on an interim basis. So the Longhorns last night, they lose to UCF. And UCF, right as they're getting ready to do the post-game handshake line, which I always think is ridiculous. I don't need a post-game handshake line. They're doing the horns down, and Rodney Terry is saying, oh, that's classless, blah, blah, blah. Well, it didn't end there. Here is the coach of the Longhorns at the podium last night, just basically getting really annoyed at the UCF program.
Whether you win or lose, you win the right way. You lose the right way. You carry yourself the right way. You don't go through the handshake line or prior to getting to the handshake line and have about 6 or 7 guys putting the horns down. We don't do that, because when you do those kind of things, it looks very classless, and it also looks like you were just hoping to win. So we don't act like that. We expect to win. We don't jump up and down act like we won a national championship. We sure don't step on anyone's home court deal and act crazy and try to show them up in any way. We don't do that. But we're not going to let you act that way in our building. You're not going to do that. You're not going to put your horns down and do all that nonsense.
It's very ironic to me because Rodney Terry is lecturing a team on how to celebrate and how to have class when you're winning. Well, I think he's classless when they're losing. You're going to go basically tell another program that they're classless and they don't know how to win when you don't know how to lose, and you're going to get that sensitive and that annoyed and that hurt over such an innocuous horns down? Give me a break. So here's my PSA. When you are a coach that loses, you don't tell another team how they should celebrate. Take your ball, go home, and then be better next time you face them on the court and win. You win, you could do what you want. You lose, you shut up, and you go home. That is my Thursday PSA. Samter?
All right, so
By the way, horns down! Horns down! Horns down!
Hook 'em, baby. You know what? I think I'm going to adopt Texas next year. Me, Quinn Ewers, and Archie Manning are going dancing together.
The start of the demise of the Longhorns program.
I can't wait.
I can't wait till every SEC program starts doing horns down next year.
Well, I'm going to flash a symbol too. This right here. This is the fork for my ASU Sun Devils.
Okay.
All right. Last night, there was a little kerfuffle against UCLA. And after the game, my boy, my head coach, my favorite all-time college basketball player, and now the head coach of my Sun Devils, Bobby Hurley, was pissed off after the game. And then in his rant, talking about the refs and the free throws and the disparity, he whipped out this beautiful, beautiful gem.
Some responsibility certainly lies with our need to, in a heated game where I'm sure there's a lot of communication, and we're the bad guys. So say hello to the bad guys. You may never see a bad guy like us again, but that's who we were tonight. We were the bad guys.
Now, if that line sounds familiar, it might remind you of Mr. Al Pacino in Scarface.
So say good night to the bad guy. Last time you're going to see a bad guy like this again. Let me tell you. Big way for the bad guy. There's a bad guy coming through.
Yeah, it's the bad guys. So I love that. I love the proper, wise, funny use of movie, TV quotes. However, I hate when people overuse and unnecessarily drop quotes into every damn conversation. There was a point about 8 to 10 years ago where everybody, my wife is very nice, every
You'll never get this. No.
Right? It's funny when you drop it in every now and again. It's even better when you just kind of drop in a line that might be obscure and you don't look around for credit. It's not even part of humor. It's just part of the conversation. Great. When you just overly use movie and TV quotes nonstop over and over and over because you have no original thought, no original use of your own quality words, vocabulary, or individuality, and you have to just constantly quote movies, then get out of my face. I don't want to talk to you.
So should I have introduced you in this segment by saying, say hello to my little friend now? Here's Mike Samter.
I'm your very big friend. This is Big Mike CBS. This is not Little Mike CBS.
Sorry, you brought up a little Al Pacino. I thought I could go there.
Hooah!
That was a good one. I had no clue where you were going because I love how you try to make this as if it was like a positive thing for Arizona State when they lost the game last night. to UCLA, and I was like, what did I miss that Samter is really going off of here? But then you tied it together very nicely.
I was listening to my boy Bobby Hurley, and then I heard that line. I'm like,
yeah,
is that Scarface? So I had to go back to listen to Scarface, and I'm like, yes, he just randomly quoted Scarface in the middle of his rant without even like stopping, looking around, no notification, no appreciate, nothing. Just let me just drop this in here and continue along ripping the ref.
I also love how he started that press conference where he was like, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to say, and then I'm not going to listen to anything you say, and I'm not going to answer anything you say because I can't say what I want to say. And then someone asked him a question, and he goes, "Did you like to say the reporter's name was Mike?" He was like, "Mike, did you just not hear what I just said?" It was awesome. I love the Hurley family.
Bobby Hurley is a legend.
All righty, Stu, what do you got?
Yeah, real quickly. So I have friends that decide that when I don't respond within a certain amount of time, whether it's like 20 minutes, maybe it's an hour, maybe it's a couple hours, maybe I'm doing something right. They feel the need that they have to double text me, triple text me, similar things.
The exclamation emoji now?
Like, it's like something, it's not even something that's urgent. It's something that can wait. It's not urgent. It's like, what's your opinion on this trade that this team made or whatever? Like, just let me live my life. You don't have to, you don't need my immediate opinion, my immediate answer. Like, I don't want to be on my phone for 20 hours a day. So, to my friends out there, Howard, just take it easy and let me be, and let me live my life. You don't need to blow up my phone.
Let Stu be.
Yes.
Let it be. Let it be.
Zach, I think you just opened up a book for us. You and I need to text him continuously, nonstop, and just bug him, and then get pissed off when he doesn't respond.
You know what? I already knew this about Stu, that he lives with his girlfriend, but I know it even more because that's always a thing with like girls both ways. You text them, they don't respond back right away. You think you're getting dumped, or you don't respond to them right away. It's like, question mark, question mark, question mark. What are you doing? What's going wrong? Now Stu is in the stage of his life where he lives with his girlfriend. They have constant communication. Then now his friends basically give him the girlfriend treatment on the emojis.
100%, yes.
Yeah, that exclamation feature or the question mark feature is the most annoying thing. Like, you got to give me a little grace period. You text me, whoever it is, and I don't respond to you right away, it probably means two things. One, I'm intentionally blowing you off, which is a case. Or two, I'm busy. I'm busy doing something. It's not that crazy. All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Very, very solid. 3 for 3 showing of the Zach Gelb Show PSA. We'll take a time out. When we come on back, we already know the Cowboys are keeping Mike McCarthy. I think that's a big mistake. It also appears, nothing official yet, but with the way that the reporting is going, it appears that the Philadelphia Eagles, after starting the year 10-1 and finishing the season with only 11 wins and going 1-6, putrid, awful, lethargic, pathetic, down the stretch, that they're going to be keeping Nick Sirianni. Yikes. Who's making the worst decision? Which decision is more damaging? Is it the Cowboys keeping Mike McCarthy, or the appearance of the Eagles right now keeping Nick Sirianni as their head football coach? We'll jump into that conversation. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. I think Samter just texted us in a group chat, and he said, Stu, you there? And then he sent 9,000 emojis. And we now have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 texts in the last 10 seconds from Michael Samter.
Where's Stu?
Oh, boy, we're screwed.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, hour number 2 of our radio program. It is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. So, we know for sure that the Dallas Cowboys are sticking with Mike McCarthy as the head coach. That has been made official. When it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles, it appears that Nick Sirianni is going to come back. He still has to meet with Jeffrey Lurie, but Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni have gathered together to find future names of coordinators because I think it's pretty clear. We know for sure the Eagles will have a new defensive coordinator next year. They got rid of Sean Desai from being the DC in season, even though he was still on the roster. Then they did go with Matt Patricia, who was on the staff. They made Hassan Reddick practically be invisible down the stretch, and you saw frustration from Hassan Reddick, who is still a tremendous pass rusher in this league, and it made no sense how they were using him. I would like to think the Eagles are going to have a new offensive coordinator, but because of how close Jalen Hurts and Brian Johnson are, I don't know if that's going to be the case. And I don't think Brian Johnson is going to get hired as a head coach, but the Falcons did make it clear the other day that they at least interviewed him. So I would think, and this is just following logic, Sirianni, let's say he comes back, he's definitely going to have a new DC. But he should also probably have a new offensive coordinator as well. I know for sure he'll have a new DC. I do not know if he will have a new offensive coordinator. But I don't think it's the right decision to bring Sirianni back. I've made that clear. And I get it. 3 years, 3 postseason trips, in the Super Bowl a year ago. But this past year, and not even the entirety of the year, the last 2 months, where they were 1-6 down the stretch, it got bad. And even though yesterday you had guys like Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelce come to your defense, they all said those things with at least one of those guys, maybe both of those guys, being out the door. Like, we know whether he wants to admit it or not, and he just wants to do it on his own terms, and I respect that. We know that Jason Kelce's about to hang him up. So as much as Jason Kelce is a legend, and Jason Kelce is one of the best athletes that I've ever covered, and one of the nicest people ever, I don't care that Jason Kelce's giving an endorsement of Nick Sirianni. It's kind of like reminiscent in some way of the Broncos players after Nathaniel Hackett got hired, and it was the last 2 weeks of the season, and everyone didn't say anything about Russell Wilson, but then the last 2 weeks of the year, got Garrett Bowles, all these guys are popping up out of nowhere to speak positively about Russell Wilson. It doesn't carry any weight with me. And Fletcher Cox may be back in Philadelphia next year, and he's a legend in that franchise, but he's either walking off the green at 17, getting ready to tee off on 18, or he's walking up the fairway of 18 as well. Like, he is close to the end of his career, especially in Philadelphia. So Fletcher Cox, we'll play this for you right now. Let's play him first defending Nick Sirianni yesterday in the locker room.
Come on, man. What is it to talk about, man? Because, man, he's a winner. He's a winning head coach. You know, do we have some bumps this year? Yeah, but every team, every organization, everybody goes through it. But we don't look at firing a man who, you know, obviously has won 10-plus games 2 years in a row, that's took his organization to 3 playoff appearances 3 years in a row. You know, that's a respect. You know, the coach he's a good leader for this team. He does a really good job. Did we come up short? Yeah. Did things happen this year? Yeah. But you don't look at, you know, or I don't discuss about, you know, firing a man or, you know, this man got a family.
And then let's hear Fletcher Cox get very upset with Jeff McClain, longtime Philadelphia scribe.
Huh?
Yeah.
Come on, man. Nah, man, he head football coach of this team, man. Come on, man. There ain't even no discussion about that.
Okay, you don't think it's going to happen?
Like, I don't got nothing to say about that, man. You're a clown, bro. Come on, face, bro.
I think that Fletcher Cox and Jeff McClain, just by some of the articles that I have read, have had some beef in the past, and this is not their first kerfuffle. I guess that's the new word that I'm on. Kerfuffle that they've had against one another in one of these settings. But to Fletcher Cox, originally he was like, huh? When he was asked about the whole idea about the uncertainty of Nick Sirianni's job status, you got to act a little bit better than that.
Huh?
You know, you 1,000% know what the conversation is. And it's not like you're a rookie. You've been in this league for a long time. You've dominated in this league for a long time. You know those questions are coming. So it's nice of Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelce as well to be adamant that they want Nick Sirianni back, but Kelce probably won't even be back. And I would think Fletcher Cox is going to be back, but it's not a guarantee. And also, when have you ever heard with an acting head coach, a player get in front of a microphone, and when they ask him about the coach's future, say, yeah, that coach got to go. Yeah, we got to fire that coach. We should have left him at the tarmac, right on the tarmac in Tampa Bay. It doesn't happen. Now, it kind of shows you the Eagles' direction that they're moving, where on the defensive side of the ball, Darius Slay, like we all know Sean Desai and Matt Patricia aren't calling plays next year. They probably won't even be on the coaching staff. Darius Slay is talking about one of the positional coaches last year who they thought should have got the DC job and ended up in Baltimore, and look at the success of the Baltimore Ravens defense. So that's the only thing that I know for sure next year with the Eagles is they're going to have a new DC. But on the offensive side of the ball, I don't know what to expect. And here's my thing with Nick Sirianni. What does he do in an outstanding way? Why should I bring him back? He gave up play calling, whether that was forced or that was his own decision, like 5 or 6 games into his first year as the head coach. Then Shane Steichen was a rock star. Shane Steichen ended up getting a job with the Colts, and up until his last play call of the season, he did a remarkable job with Indianapolis, and they exceeded all expectations. And everyone liked to tell you how bad Jonathan Gannon was last year as a defensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles. Jonathan Gannon had a respectable team this year with not a lot of talent in the Arizona Cardinals, beat the Eagles outright, and that defense did a complete 180 without Jonathan Gannon. So I look at Sirianni, and I give him credit for hiring a good offensive coordinator and hiring a good defensive coordinator. But once you gave them your best, this past year was an absolute disaster, even after you were gifted a 10-1 start. A 10-1 start. And you finished the year 1-6 down the stretch. So I understand, and this is when Doug Peterson won his Super Bowl. And Doug Peterson had a meeting with Jeffrey Lurie. Jeffrey Lurie did not like his list of new coordinators. And Doug Peterson was shown the door. So I guess there's still a possibility that Nick Sirianni could get showed the door in the next day or two, or maybe by the end of this full week. But I do believe the Eagles brass, whether it's Jeffrey Lurie or Howie Roseman, I think they like a coach that they could control. And also, I'm not saying that we need to live in a world now where players hate their coaches, but I think it's abundantly clear that Nick Sirianni is a player's coach that is a doormat. Like Mike Vrabel is a player's coach, but he's not a doormat. And that's a problem. Like I look at Sirianni as more of a cheerleader than I do as a head football coach. Like when you're wearing your guy's jersey to the game, when you have a moment of adversity and things like that, like, are you going to really get that group to rally together? And Sirianni, if you're this bright offensive mind, why didn't you take control of the offense down the stretch? Why didn't you prevent that locker room from sinking? And you were the one, or you and your team were the one that put together this offensive coordinator and this defensive coordinator. It was a disaster. So as much as I don't think Mike McCarthy should be back as the head coach of the Cowboys, I actually think it's a worse decision with the Eagles if they continue to go through with Nick Sirianni. And here's why. I believe in this Eagles roster. The Eagles are actually close. The Eagles just last year had a 10-point lead in the Super Bowl where Jalen Hurts was the best player on the field, and they almost slayed the Kansas City Chiefs, the dragon of the NFL. A year later, you're off to a 10-1 start, and then you look like one of the worst teams ever down the stretch at 1-6. You couldn't beat the Giants, the second time. You lost to the Cardinals. You lost to Drew Lock. Like the Cowboys, I know, they're just a good team. They're not close to being great. The Eagles have displayed greatness to you before. They know how to win. But sometimes the guy that builds back up the house isn't the one that's going to finish off your house and put the roof on top of your home. And that's why I do believe when you have the names of Belichick, Carroll, Harbaugh, and Vrabel out there, one of those 4 guys need to be the next head coach of the Eagles next year. But I don't expect it to happen. I would actually be genuinely surprised if we get an announcement in the next 48, 72 hours that the Eagles have decided to part ways with Nick Sirianni. They'll try to bring in a new defensive coordinator. Maybe, at best, they'll try to bring in a new offensive coordinator. But I'm trying to figure out, other than, and I can't even say he's a good cheerleader anymore or a good rah-rah guy, because that clearly had an expiration date of 2 years. Because when they needed him the most to galvanize that locker room down the stretch when they're just exploding in front of our eyes, being 1-6. You have defensive players yelling at the coaching staff, offensive players yelling at the coaching staff, the quarterback that looked like an MVP a year ago, just totally looking competent on the field. This was a cluster, you know what? And that's why I think it's a worse decision by the Eagles to keep Sirianni than it is the Cowboys to keep McCarthy, because I expected more out of the Philadelphia Eagles. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Let's go to Pete in Pennsylvania next up on CBS Sports Radio. Pete, what do you say?
You know what? You made a lot of good points just now, but I still got to say that Roger McCarthy has got to go. Mike McCarthy, I'm sorry. I mean, we've been in this, we know what we got with him. And I admit the Sirianni has some major problems, but I'd be more concerned if I was the Cowboys faithful, rooting on that guy that doesn't have an answer for what we have to wait for every year, the playoffs. What do they do?
Choke.
Have a good one, guys.
Yeah, I appreciate the phone call, Pete. And let me be clear. It's like asking, which sickness would you rather have? Which disease would you rather have? Both of these guys shouldn't be brought back as the head football coach of the Dallas Cowboys or the Philadelphia Eagles. Just the conversation is, which one is a worse decision? And I think it's Sirianni because I expected more out of this Eagles team, and I think this Eagles team is closer than the Dallas Cowboys. But real quickly, let's play this again. I still can't get over this. This is Mike McCarthy. Already knows he's coming on back. Do a little press conference, right? You're a lame duck coach. No contract extension yet that we know of. And this gem of a quote from Mike McCarthy that he gave a little while ago, defending his playoff record and talking about the championship, but not world championship culture that he's brought to Dallas.
We have established a championship program. It's just not the world championship yet. We know how to win. We know how to train to win. We have the right people, but we have not crossed the threshold of winning playoff games. And it's extremely disappointing to be sitting here talking about it. But I know how to win, and we will get over that threshold. I have total confidence in it, and that's why I'm standing here today.
Stu, do me a favor. Play me the first 5 to 7 seconds of that just one more time. I just want to really replay how stupid of a quote that is.
We have established a championship program. It's just not the world championship yet. We know how to win. We know how to train.
So we've established a championship program, but not a world championship program. So what? You just established a championship program to what? The NFC East, where you won one division championship? Is that what or 2 division championships, I guess? Is that what we're talking about? That's what you're playing for? Because it's not like I haven't seen the Cowboys win a division championship before. But since 1995, they haven't been in an NFC title game. They haven't been to a Super Bowl. So to say you've established a championship program but not a world championship program is basically you just justifying losing and not understanding what the definition of being a champion is. Maybe you get to an NFC title game and you win an NFC title game and you go to a Super Bowl. At least there was some championship. But you're going to tell me you winning a division championship twice is now a championship program? That's the least important championship, right? In the NFL, it's win your division, it's win the conference, win the Super Bowl. In terms of importance, though, winning the Super Bowl is number 1, winning the NFC, your conference is 2, and then winning your division is 3. So because you've won the least important championship, that now means you have a championship program, but not a world championship program. Chris in California, next up on CBS Sports Radio, 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Chris, what's happening?
Hey, what's going on, man?
Doing great.
Good. You know why Philadelphia is going to settle with keeping Nick Sirianni? It's because nobody is going to want to come and be micromanaged by Harry Roseman. Nothing's going to change until either Harry Roseman changes his philosophy or they fire him. Now, with the locker room being taken over...
Well, just real quickly, the one thing that's tough with Howie, it's been a roller coaster with Howie. Because remember, right, Chip Kelly came in, he basically demoted Howie Roseman, told him to move his office, and you never heard from Howie Roseman. Then Roseman came back, he won a Super Bowl. Then he got a lot of people, a lot of criticism for missing on the drafts with Justin Jefferson and DK Metcalf, and he got this team back to another Super Bowl. So even though Howie has flaws, Howie's done more winning than losing, though, in this league, Chris.
I give you that, but like I said, if things don't change in a positive direction, you're just the Philadelphia Eagles are just going to be in purgatory. Now, the biggest problem now is
that I don't agree with, because like Doug Peterson, for example, was viewed as a puppet when he first got here, and they ended up winning a Super Bowl with Doug.
Okay, yeah.
So you can't say that's purgatory. That's as successful as you get.
Those are two different head coaches. Doug Peterson and Nick Sirianni are two different head coaches.
Well, they've both been talked about very similarly. And I covered Doug when he was in Philly. Doug was not a popular hire. You had people like Mike Lombardi say it was the least qualified coaching hire he's ever seen. Doug was viewed as a puppet just like Sirianni was. Doug just proved everyone wrong.
The thing is, Doug Peterson had Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz also was an MVP candidate as well before he got hurt.
Yeah.
The Philadelphia Eagles don't have a franchise quarterback. They think they have a franchise quarterback, but they don't. You need to go out and you need to get somebody that's going to compete with Jalen Hurts. And
Jalen Hurts just played just as well, if not better, than Carson did.
No.
Last year he did. Yes, he did.
No, he didn't. All those tush pushes,
they didn't run the tush push last year. They didn't run the tush push last year when they got to the Super Bowl.
Jeffrey Lurie, you need to go out and get Kenny Pickett, bring him to Philadelphia, bring him
Chris,
home, man.
Chris, can I just ask you a question? You still there, Chris? We still got Chris?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Well, so now you've called me twice to say Kenny Pickett. What is is Kenny Pickett a relative of yours? Is he a relative of yours?
No. Why does everybody ask that?
Because Kenny Pickett
I called WIP. They argue with me. You guys don't know how to play football. You guys don't know nothing about football.
So, Chris, what's your football credentials? Just wondering. Where'd you play?
I played community college football.
Where? South Harmon Institute of Technology?
Dude, what are you gonna like talk down on me or something? Like,
no, but it's just a dumb point. Mason Rudolph just played better than Kenny Pickett.
Bro, I'm an average person out here that wasn't fortunate enough to be born into a freaking college family, bro. And what did you?
All righty, Chris. Have a good day. Take a lap. Kenny Pickett can't hold Jalen Hurts' jock. He can't hold his jock strap. Jalen Hurts was an MVP candidate last year. And you're going to tell me Kenny Pickett? And that's the second time this week I've had to hear Kenny Pickett to the Eagles. And here's another thing. If Kenny Pickett is that great, what makes you think that the Steelers are then going to trade him to the Eagles? You know, I've been wrong about a lot of things that I predicted. Here's one thing that I won't be wrong about. Kenny Pickett will not have a better career than Jalen Hurts. Oh, geez, Louise. What are we doing here, Samter?
Do you want to put some money a show bet?
Yeah. I will throw hot sauce. I will dunk a full bucket of the hottest hot sauce in the world all over me if Kenny Pickett ends up having a better career than Jalen Hurts.
I mean, I feel like if you gave me the right odds, right, like 5,000 to 1,
yeah,
I would maybe take that bet.
Also, Chris's point. He goes, I wasn't fortunate enough to be born into a college family. What does that have to do with you calling up a radio show and spewing some stupid nonsense about wanting Kenny Pickett, who can't even win the job or be viewed as a positive force on the field in Pittsburgh? What does that have to do with your dumb point that you called up?
And the worst part of it all is that he started up by insulting you, by saying, what do you guys know nothing about football.
Yeah.
It's like, so if you're going to insult the host and say he knows nothing about football, then you can't get butthurt when the host comes back at you and questions your credentials.
And not for nothing, I had a Division I coach beg me to walk on his football team. I was a JV9 Offensive Lineman of the Year at Comac High School. I have football credentials.
Whatever, that coach hasn't done anything else in his career since he asked you to walk on, so it's not like that has any weight to it either.
Yeah, this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. There's a lot of dumb phone calls I take. A lot. I've taken a lot of dumb phone calls. That could be the dumbest one I've ever taken, Samter. That's up there. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Can you beat the dumb take of Kenny Pickett should replace Jalen Hurts as the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles? Do you have a dumb enough take We're going to be stupid on a Thursday. We're thirsty for your dumb takes. Let me know if you have a worse take than that.
I think David Carr saying bench Jalen Hurts for Marcus Mariota was not far off.
I actually think that was a better idea. Oh, jeez. Chris must have small hands. That's why he loves Kenny Pickett. You know what they say about people with small hands. All righty.
Small gloves.
It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio.
With what C.J. Stroud has done this year, I think C.J. Stroud is now a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. Like, entering next year, I don't think there are 5 quarterbacks that you could tell me that you would rather have over C.J. Stroud. Like, this team does not have a lot. You change the coach, you change the quarterback, you got it right there. Will Anderson Jr. lived up to the hype too. It just shows you how great and how clutch and how advanced at such an early age C.J. Stroud is.
Here's Zach Gelb.
All righty, Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio, where we do not endorse Kenny Pickett getting into the Eagles quarterback room. What a phone call that was. You could always hit us up, 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. This portion of the show is brought to you by Wesley Financial. Stuck in a timeshare and want out? Contact Wesley Financial Group now and get a free timeshare exit information kit at wesleyfinancialgroup.com. Before I make some head coaching predictions, let me just also say this. When I look at the Eagles and you compare them to the Cowboys, I think Dak has his limitations. I look at Dak Prescott, I think he's just a good but not a great quarterback. With Jalen Hurts, I saw a quarterback in his first 2 years as a starter, won more games that was expected out of him, then in year 2 play like an MVP, and after one offensive coordinating change, he ended up being a disaster or an underwhelming quarterback this year, even though there was a time this season when people were making a case for Jalen Hurts to win the MVP for a few weeks. So that's why I'm not willing to give up on Jalen Hurts yet. Now, Jalen Hurts just got a massive contract extension. So when I see Jalen Hurts, I don't think this year, even though I don't want to exonerate him from all blame, but I do think this year was more of a coaching issue than a Jalen Hurts issue. And I still don't know what the apex of Jalen Hurts could be. But we've never talked about Dak Prescott being a top 5 quarterback in the league. We haven't. You know, I know this year some people said MVP, but no one ever went into a season talking about Dak Prescott as a top 5 quarterback in the sport. Jalen Hurts going into this year, which was his third full year, going into his third full year as being a starter in this league, was talked about pretty much unanimously as being a top 5 quarterback in the sport. So that's why I don't think it's fair for anyone to call up and suggest, the Eagles, man, they got to give up on Jalen Hurts. They got to bring someone else in. No. Bring in a new offensive coordinator and get Jalen Hurts back to doing what Jalen Hurts did a year ago. Let's go to David in Milwaukee, 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. He's next up with Zach Gelb on the Zach Gelb Show. David, what's happening?
Hi, how are you?
Doing great, David. What do you got?
I kind of disagree with you, and I'm not your fan, but I'm not disliking you that mad. I think you're all right, but I disagree with a lot of your points.
Okay.
I think you're wrong with McCarthy, even though I'm from Milwaukee area, and I'm not a Packer fan, I'm a Raiders fan. So
my condolences, David.
Havas had said that. It is what it is. But anyway, I didn't like McCarthy here because he was a pompous ass, and he talked like his, everything that came out of his ass was the best thing happening. But anyhow,
did you like Rodgers? Just wondering.
I still believe that he is still a good coach in general. The only problem is I kind of put a lot of the problem on the defense of the Cowboys. No.
Yeah, you're 100% right. The Cowboys defense folded in a big game. The offense folded in the big game. Mike McCarthy folded in the big game. I don't think Mike McCarthy. So what do you disagree with me about? This is what I don't get.
Well, because McCarthy's not the only thing is you can't replace him because what are you going to get? Who are you going to hire?
Bill Belichick, Pete Carroll,
okay, Belichick,
Jim Harbaugh.
The old man that doesn't really, he tried to prove himself, and I don't think he's going anywhere. And that's just my opinion. I might be wrong, but I think him and Brady made a great career. And let's just face it, both of them together were phenomenal. And let's just leave that at that. Why are we always constantly searching for other things to happen? It's not going to happen. Belichick was a failure before he came to New England, right?
Well, he won I wouldn't call him a failure. He did win a playoff game in Cleveland, but he wasn't considered one of the greatest coaches of all time. Sure, you're right on that. So what's your point, David? This is what I don't understand. You're saying you disagree with me.
Well,
but hold on, David, hold on a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm all for people disagreeing with me. We don't have to have a bloodbath over every conversation. I just don't understand what you're disagreeing with me about.
Because you're cutting down like McCarthy, even though I'm not the biggest fan of McCarthy, but I don't think he's a bad coach.
No one ever said Mike McCarthy's a bad coach. I've said for the last 2 hours that Mike McCarthy's a good coach, but they need someone else in Dallas. It's funny to me. This guy calls up and he goes, Mike McCarthy is a pompous ass. You know, I didn't like him when he won a Super Bowl in Green Bay. Like, what is going on here? What? I want to pull out my hair. You know, I should have taken another sick day. Seriously. What are we doing? You're calling up, you're trashing McCarthy, and then you get annoyed after you just trashed McCarthy, called him a pompous ass, when I say that Mike McCarthy should be fired. So you hated McCarthy when he was in Green Bay, even though you're a Raiders fan, so you can't recognize a good coach to save your life regardless. And then you're saying, oh, I'm wrong for wanting McCarthy out, and you're saying I said McCarthy is a bad coach. But I never said that. I've defended Mike McCarthy for crying out loud. But he's a good coach. He's not very good. He's not great. And the Cowboys need something else because 2 out of the last 3 years, they have failed to be ready for a playoff game. Doesn't take away all the blame from the players, but these players are under contracts in a salary cap era. You can't just get rid of all the players. The players are more important than the coach. Yeah, the quarterback sucked the other day. The defense sucked the other day. We all know that. But you're not going to get rid of all the players. But there are coaches out there. Belichick would instantly be an upgrade. Carroll, instantly be an upgrade. Vrabel, upgrade. Jim Harbaugh, upgrade. I would understand, let's say there weren't good names out there. Let's say the pool was rather slim. I would get that. But this idea that there aren't good names out there, that's just ridiculous. Let's go to Jordan in Calgary next up on CBS Sports Radio. Jordan, what's happening?
So I personally think that part of the issue, I think Dak Prescott and Mike McCarthy both shoulder a huge amount of the blame.
Yeah.
And so how much longer does Mike McCarthy have left on his contract? Do you know?
This is the final year of his contract. He's a lame duck head coach. They have not given him an extension.
So do you believe that the Dallas Cowboys should move on from both Dak Prescott and Mike McCarthy next year?
So here's the tricky part. I don't think Dak wins you a Super Bowl. I don't think Dak is a great quarterback. I think Dak is a good quarterback. Dak Prescott's going into the final year of his contract. His cap hit, though, for next year is almost $60 million. So Dak's going to be on the roster next year. But if you keep him at that number, it's going to be tough to really improve this football team. That's why most people believe, even though you're going to have to hold your nose and overpay for Dak Prescott, that Dak's going to get a contract extension so they could alleviate that number this year and trim that number down.
Man, if I was Dallas, I think I'd let Prescott go because to me it's like there's no point in keeping him. And there's no point in keeping McCarthy either, by the way. I think McCarthy's an average coach at best.
Mm-hmm.
But
so, Jordan, just to be fair here, you're getting rid of Dak Prescott. Who are you bringing in?
That's the tricky part. Like maybe you could bring in a Michael Penix from the draft. I know that's kind of...
Yeah, well, that's the one way that you would have to go about this. You would have to do what teams like the Chiefs and what the Bills have done, who have been good. And thanks for the phone call, Jordan. It was a good phone call. You would have to go move up in the draft, and it would upset Dak Prescott. But then after this year, you would say goodbye to Dak. You want to do that, I'm okay. I don't think Trey Lance is the guy who they just traded for. I know he's a former 3rd overall pick. You're not going to be able to go get a Kirk Cousins with how much money you have to pay Dak this year. Is Justin Fields someone? All right, he's still on a rookie deal, so you could get him and then eventually pay him. But I think Justin Fields could be good, but I don't know that for sure. So I'm okay with resetting the timeline on Dak, but you got to bring someone in this year that's either going to sit a year and going to basically cost you nothing, or it could play right away, and then maybe you try to trade Dak, but still it's an enormous dead cap hit. It is. But in all likelihood, Dak's going to get an extension. And I don't think Dak ever wins a Super Bowl in this league, but this is the world of the NFL when you have a good quarterback and not a great quarterback. It's the biggest problem in the NFL. The good quarterback makes great quarterback money. And Samter has talked about this until he's blue in the face. He was dead on about this. And sometimes you could say, oh, it's insanity to give someone a new deal, but then it's like, where else do you go? Like, look at the Vikings. That was a team that won double-digit games last year. They lose Kirk Cousins, and they go through a multitude of quarterbacks. You're like, uh-oh, yeah, I actually want Kirk Cousins back for next year. And I actually give him a new deal when no Viking fan would have said that before the season started. That's life in the NFL when you have a good, not great quarterback. Good quarterbacks, they think they have a seat at a great quarterback table. And in reality, when they get that table, then they fall right through the chair. And they still have their money. They still get the seat at the table. They still have their space at the table. But you know they're not as great as the actual great names that are deserving of being at that table. Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio. I'll make predictions on all the head coaching openings around the league. Who will get those jobs when we return? Update time first. Here is the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, there are 7 coaching vacancies currently in the NFL, but only one right now has serious interest in Bill Belichick, who will reportedly meet with the Falcons for a second time this weekend after a one-on-one between Belichick and owner Arthur Blank. The Falcons are also reportedly interested in Mike Vrabel, who's also drawing some interest from the Seahawks. The former Titans coach has reportedly met with the Chargers regarding their vacancy. Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin said he's open to an extension after walking out of his post-game press conference earlier in the week when asked about it. He also added they'll look outside the organization for their next offensive coordinator and that they'll also bring in some competition for Kenny Pickett. The Timberwolves have enjoyed a great turnaround this year and go for their second win in as many nights and their 30th of the year. They host the Grizzlies tonight. Veteran guard Mike Conley has provided leadership. Anthony Edwards said another reason for the turnaround has been the one by big man Rudy Gobert.
We're happy he's here. First year didn't go how we wanted to go, but he definitely shaped it this year. And everything that he wants, he's getting. So hopefully he gets another defense player of the year because he's playing great right now.
And the Jazz go for their 7th straight tonight. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, this is JR. Let's hang out weeknights here on CBS Sports Radio for my show, The JR Sport Brief, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio.
Dan Campbell personified who he is as the coach of the Lions, where he's aggressive and he's going to do things that are unconventional. And Goff, who has been a solid quarterback but has not got universally praise, and people just thought he was a throw-in in that Stafford deal for the Lions to go snag another first-round pick to take on the contract of Jared Goff. He has been better than what anyone could have dreamt about for the Detroit Lions.
Here's Zach Gelb.
All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Let's make some head coaching predictions. I'll start with Stu's team, the Las Vegas Raiders. It's still mystifying to me why they haven't made the announcement yet that Antonio Pierce is going to be the permanent head coach. That, I never give the Raiders the benefit of the doubt. That makes me think that they're trying to cook up something else and they have something brewing. But I will still predict that Antonio Pierce is going to be the next coach. And it does make sense because Max Crosby wants him. You know Devontae Adams wants him. Let's say you don't bring him in and they don't like the coach. Both of those guys, not that you have to trade them, but they're going to be unhappy and they're going to request a trade. It is weird that they haven't announced it yet, especially with how quickly, I know there was a clause in his contract and all that the Patriots got it done with Gerard Mayo. You would have thought after already having a head start to this with Pierce being the interim head coach that he would have got the gig by now, but we still haven't got that announcement. I'm going to say, though, that the Raiders do, in fact, make Antonio Pierce, though, their full-time head coach. So that's number one. Number two, the Commanders. We know that they've hired Adam Peters to be their general manager. I would think that Mike Vrabel would make a lot of sense for the Washington Commanders, but I'm not going to predict him to land there. Like, we look at the Commanders, and because they have Josh Harris, this new owner, new life in that organization, everyone thought they were going to make a big, bold move. Reportedly, they're not interested in Belichick. Reportedly, they're not interested in Pete Carroll. I haven't heard anything on the Mike Vrabel front as well. I don't believe there's been anything with Jim Harbaugh. So those are the four biggest names on the market that have been established. And it doesn't seem like the Commanders are interested in any of those four from what we know right now. So then you look at the hottest coordinator, and the hottest coordinator comes on the offensive side of the ball, the OC for the Detroit Lions and Ben Johnson. That's who I think is going to get this job. I believe it's going to be Ben Johnson. And you have Josh Harris, who made a splash because that's a popular name, but it does come with it being a little bit unknown in terms of what he's going to be as a head coach. So Raiders, Antonio Pierce, Commanders, Ben Johnson. I go to the Atlanta Falcons. It's like, I would be surprised if it's not Belichick. Now, I know Belichick is very tough to predict, and Belichick has been linked to the Falcons from the start. He's already had one interview. Now they have a second interview lined up. They have interviewed other candidates as well. They have also already interviewed Brian Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Eagles, so they're in compliance with the Rooney Rule as well. So this could happen any day now. The thing to watch here with the Falcons is they currently have a GM in Terry Fontenot. Will Belichick be willing to listen to Terry Fontenot, or will this be one of those things where Terry's still the GM, but Belichick has no respect for him? Either way, that's an issue that could play on out and be a problem a year from now, where let's say maybe they move on from Terry Fontenot, or Belichick and Fontenot find a respect for each other. Bill, who's one of the great adapters, says, okay, I need to get away from the personnel side of the things and be okay with someone telling me that this isn't what's in the best interest of my football team. I'll believe that when I see it. But Arthur Blank, what we thought Josh Harris would do, this is what Arthur Blank is doing. He wants the established big name, and he wants to make a splash. And you can't make a bigger splash than Bill Belichick. Now, I'm not saying that means that you're going to have, Bill Belichick of the last, for the most part, 20 years. But I do believe that Belichick can go to Atlanta. He'll use Bijan Robinson the right way. He'll get more out of Kyle Pitts. And they'll find a game manager and above-average quarterback where Atlanta could win the division next year. So I'll go Atlanta with Bill. The Chargers. I know that they've been interested in a bunch of names stemming from Vrabel. We found out today David Shaw as well, the former longtime Stanford coach, who did a lot of work with the NFL Network for the NFL draft. And a lot of people love David Shaw in that role, and they've been speculating for years about David Shaw maybe one day coaching in the NFL. But I look at what makes the most sense when you combine being a little bit younger, you combine having a winning past, and also a coach that's had success in multiple levels. Like, I just look at Harbaugh, and I think the world of Jim Harbaugh, what he's done in college, what he's done in the NFL. Remember, Tom Telesco was also let go, so there were some problems in San Francisco between Balky and Jim Harbaugh. You're hiring that coach first in LA. And Jim Harbaugh is one of the hotter names on the market, and I don't believe the Chargers could afford to risk hiring one of these young hotshot coordinators, because Brandon Staley, with the talent that he had, ended up being a disaster. With the decision up against the Raiders, that decision to call the timeout, you could argue cost them a playoff berth. Then last year, getting spotted a 27-point lead in the postseason and choking it up. Everyone in America, heck, even outside of America, knew that Brandon Staley needed to be let go after that loss. They didn't. They brought him back this year. The players didn't respect him. They all thought he was crazy as well. They stopped defending him. And then, boom, the Chargers weren't even close to competing for a playoff spot. Harbaugh, from a leadership standpoint, Harbaugh, from a coaching standpoint and a winning standpoint, and also not being as older maybe as a Belichick or a Pete Carroll, that's the guy that I think the Chargers end up hiring will be Jim Harbaugh. Let's go to the Seahawks. I think the job status of Mike Vrabel is one of the more fascinating ones in this hiring cycle. Like, it feels like when you look at the Big Four, Belichick, everyone gets a sense he's going to the Falcons. Harbaugh, I guess he could still go back to Michigan, but most of us, I think, are embracing or understanding or thinking that he's going to go to the Chargers. Pete Carroll, I think he's going to take a year off. I believe he's going to recharge his batteries, and then a year from now, right, leave the Seahawks organization and then go find his next landing spot. But for Vrabel, I could see him waiting a year or taking a job. Like, we all know Vrabel's too young not to coach again. But I only think Vrabel's going to take the right job. I don't think he's just going to take a job to take a job. And last week I would have said immediately when the Seahawks job opened up, it'd probably be Dan Quinn. But Dan Quinn has been a hot name the last 2 years. And I'm trying to understand if he's a hot name because he's actually been in demand or if it's his agent working wonders. Because Dan Quinn hasn't got a job and he's portrayed it as, I didn't want to leave Dallas and I'm going to go back to Dallas. And people speculate maybe one day he could replace Mike McCarthy in Dallas. I don't know how true it is and how authentic it is with Dan Quinn actually being a hot name. And I look at the Seahawks, even though Geno Smith is not a franchise quarterback, you got a lot of talent there. You have DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith and Jigba, some young players on the defensive side of the ball. And then you have two running backs, if they could stay healthy, and Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, that I'm a fan of from their days at Michigan State and UCLA. Vrabel reminds me a lot like a younger Pete Carroll. And I do believe Mike Vrabel, even though there hasn't officially been an interview yet, will wind up as the next head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. We go to Tennessee. Tennessee and the Panthers are the two most confusing ones because it doesn't seem like Tennessee is going to embrace a big name. It seems like they want to go to a younger name and they're ready to build from the ground up. And then with Carolina, I think they're going to have to settle for an underwhelming name because everyone knows how toxic David Tepper is. So I could see the name I'm going to predict for Tennessee winding up in Carolina, the name I'm going to predict for Carolina winding up in Tennessee. But for Tennessee, I'm going to go with Brian Callahan, the offensive coordinator of the Cincinnati Bengals. That's a young offensive-minded coach. You know, you have a young quarterback in Will Levis. You really have to rebuild up that roster because Ryan Tannehill now is no longer going to be there. Derrick Henry is on his way out. And those were two guys that had some success in Tennessee, get a number one seed, get into an AFC title game as well. I'm going to say Tennessee goes with Brian Callahan. And for the Panthers, I don't think they get an attractive name, but just because it's not an attractive name at first sight doesn't mean that it can't end up being a successful marriage. Ultimately, it will depend on, does David Tepper trust the new GM? Does he trust the new head coach? And does he get the bleep out of the way? And I'm not saying that you can't be involved in some things, but you can't meddle your way in everything. And you can't pretend to be the football guy when you're not the football guy. You know, David Tepper reminds me a lot like Chris in California earlier, who just spews a bunch of nonsense and says a bunch of ridiculous things. And everyone's like, what the heck is this guy talking about? Like, what the heck is this guy doing in terms of these football decisions? Like, what are your credentials? But I will say the Panthers hired the Dolphins offensive coordinator from working with Mike McDaniel in Frank Smith. And that's what I think that the Panthers end up getting is kind of more of an unknown name that is younger also as well, because the experienced and seasoned guys aren't going to want to touch that job, or a guy like Ben Johnson is going to want $15 million to go to Carolina because he knows how toxic David Tepper is. So Raiders, Antonio Pierce, Commanders, Ben Johnson, Falcons, Belichick, Chargers, Harbaugh, Seahawks, Vrabel, Titans, Brian Callahan, and the Panthers, Frank Smith. Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk joins us next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Alrighty, hour number 3 of our radio program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. One of my favorite ways to read about the NFL is through Pro Football Talk. The man behind the website, of course, is the always entertaining Mike Florio. Make sure you check out his book as well, Father of Mine. And he's kind enough to join us to discuss really a chaotic time in the NFL with all these coaching cycle rumors, and we have playoff games this weekend, but it seems like everything is about who's going to be coaching where or who's returning as a head coach in the NFL this year, and Mike's kind enough to join us right now. Mike, what's happening?
How's it going, buddy? Good to talk to you again.
Well, always great to have you on. I'm doing fantastic. Let's start with the Cowboys, right? They've been the biggest topic of conversation. Jerry Jones brings back Mike McCarthy, but he's kind of still a lame duck coach because he has 1 year left on the contract. I'm just trying to figure out, Mike, what does Jerry Jones actually care about? Because it doesn't make sense to me why you would bring McCarthy back.
You know, I've suggested from time to time that this whole I want to win the Super Bowl every year, and you'd be amazed at the size of the check I would write if it would guarantee me a Super Bowl win. I kind of feel like that's a grift on the fans who are expected to write big checks for tickets every year to show up at games and pay for overpriced popcorn and hot dogs and beer. And don't even get me started on the stale popcorn at AT&T Stadium. At least that was from the Super Bowl 13 years ago when the Packers and the Cowboys played. Slipped out of the press box because I wanted some popcorn. The popcorn had been made, I think, a week earlier.
You didn't get hit by an icicle at that Super Bowl, just wondering?
Well, no. But, you know, that was like a 48-hour window where things could have been very ugly as people were approaching the Super Bowl that day. I did learn how to walk on ice for about a quarter of a mile at a time, though, so that was a benefit, a skill I didn't previously have. But anyway, I just think that there are factors well beyond winning that go into Jerry Jones' thinking, whether it's he doesn't want to pay Mike McCarthy to not coach. He typically doesn't fire coaches with time left on their contracts. He, with Jason Garrett, moved on when the contract expired. I think the last guy he fired with time left on his deal was Dave Campo, maybe Wade Phillips during the final season of his contract in 2010. So he doesn't like to do that. And I also think that there would have been a question about how you make it work with a guy like Bill Belichick. If Belichick was even interested, I've been talking to some people in the general loop of the coaching rumor mill. And, you know, the coaches talk all the time among each other and they get information and they share. Some of it's accurate, some of it's not. But there's a theory making the rounds that Bill Belichick's kind of locked in on Atlanta, and Dallas and Philly are going forward with their current coaches. And it looks like Philly's going to stick with Nick Sirianni as of right now because Belichick just ultimately wasn't interested in either of those teams, or, you know, when they worked it through the back channels, they couldn't get to a point where there was a sufficient comfort level that got Belichick to veer away from whatever he has going on in Atlanta. Where I think, you know, based on the news that Belichick and owner Arthur Blank met one-on-one, and now they're going to have another interview, that tells me Belichick had some specific terms, that Blank's okay with them, and that maybe Belichick is more interested in power, structure, money, than going to a place where it looks like he'd be more likely to win quickly.
So with that being said, let's say if there may have been interest from the Eagles and the Cowboys in Belichick, and looks like, as you said, Sirianni's going back in Philly. We know McCarthy's going back in Dallas, Mike Florio. Why wouldn't they then explore Jim Harbaugh, Pete Carroll, or Mike Vrabel? Because all three of those guys, I think, are better than who they currently employ.
Well, and it's a great point. Like, do you upgrade over who you have? Are these guys upgrades? Most people would say Jim Harbaugh, Mike Vrabel are upgrades over the current coaches, both in Dallas and in Philadelphia. But other factors, I think, creep into this. There is the benefit of familiarity. There is the question of how much are we upsetting the apple cart here? How's the locker room going to react? You know, are the players in Dallas ready to welcome a new coach? Would they have responded well to a Bill Belichick going in and imposing his very unique style of coaching on a team that isn't used to being coached that way? Would it be counterproductive until you could get enough players in there who are comfortable with the Belichick way? Look at what's happened in the past when Belichick lieutenants have gone elsewhere where there's been a different culture, and they try to bring, even when they say, I'm going to be my own coach, they don't realize how much by osmosis they become like Belichick, and they go and they piss everybody off because they go in there with that Belichick attitude. Could Belichick even pull that off in a new city where it hasn't grown up over 20 years, fueled by early success, Super Bowl win in year two more 2 years after that? People tend to go along with what the boss is saying when you've won Super Bowls. When you're just coming in cold, you got to get guys to buy in. Now, you're going to have to do that in Atlanta too, but if he goes into Atlanta, a place where they aren't even competitive, and guys resist, you just move on and you go find other guys to come in and play. It's easier to sacrifice some of the talent in a place where there's less talent to get the mindset you're looking for by way of guys who are going to be amenable to the Belichick system.
Talking to Mike Florio right now. The assumption is Dak on the final year of his contract with this cap hit for next year being nearly $60 million, that they'll find a way to get a long-term extension done. Is there any chance that the Cowboys, who are picking in the 20s right now, elect to move up in the draft and maybe have this be the last year of Dak Prescott as their quarterback?
Well, I think that by the time we get to the draft, they will know exactly where things stand with Dak Prescott. They've got to get that $59.4 million cap number down dramatically before the first day of the league year, when your top 51 players, you take their cap numbers, you add them up, and they have to be within the bounds of whatever the salary cap is going to be. And we still don't know exactly what it's going to be, but it's going to go up. It's going to keep going up, but still nearly $60 million for one guy. The Cowboys need to figure that out. I think they'll have an extension by then. One of the incidental benefits to the Cowboys this year was Dak having such a good season. It justifies the kind of contract they have to give him. He has them over a barrel with this gigantic cap number in the final year of his contract with the team. They have to give him a market-level contract. They had to do it no matter how he played this year. They were stuck. And if you trade him, the cap hit's even worse. So that has been the issue for a long time in Dallas. They screwed this up by not giving him a contract earlier in his career. They let it play out. And it finally blew up in their face. They've got to deal with this contract. So I think they're going to make another multi-year commitment to Dak because they have to. Whether or not they want to is a different issue. They have no choice but to stick with Dak. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't want to stay with him, but the contract and the way it was negotiated and the way the Cowboys screwed this thing up a few years ago, that puts them in a position where they have to keep him around.
Talking to Mike Florio right now, just circling back about your Belichick point, right? Everyone assumes that it's going to wind up being Atlanta. My big question is, who's going to be the quarterback? Like, do you see that a destination for Justin Fields? Is Kirk Cousins in play? Who do you think Belichick brings in to be his quarterback in Atlanta?
Well, they're going to have options, and Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke probably aren't at the top of the list. I guess if all else fails, when you consider the offensive weaponry they have, maybe you just run the single wing or something in Atlanta until you get a good quarterback, and I'm only partially kidding. Is Kirk Cousins going to want to be coached by Bill Belichick? I mean, that's the ultimate question here. Who wants to be coached hard the way that Tom Brady was coached by Bill Belichick for all those years? Some guys may welcome it, some guys might not. And if you have choices, if you have options, how much money is Bill Belichick going to offer to a Kirk Cousins or Justin Fields, who's eligible for a new contract? And presumably, if you would trade for him, you're going to find a way to pay him. So I think he can go in a lot of different directions. But one of the great failures of the latter years of Bill Belichick in New England, the failure to adequately replace Tom Brady, the misadventures with Mac Jones, and it's the most important position on the field. So there's a lot of unknowns there, and I don't know how much Arthur Blank is locked onto that. I think from his perspective, it's just get Belichick, and we'll figure everything else out later.
Talking to Mike Florio right now. Why haven't the Raiders yet officially named Antonio Pierce their head coach, in your opinion?
Great question. Could be that owner Mark Davis pondering whether or not Mike Vrabel is in play. Is Jim Harbaugh in play? It's a dangerous game for them to play at this point if they do anything by way of interviewing some of these big-name candidates, because you've already got Max Crosby, the defensive end for the Raiders, making it clear that if Pierce doesn't get the job, then Crosby may have to ask for a trade. You got players on that team that really want Pierce. And that doesn't mean that Pierce is poised to be a great coach, but he's done a great job under difficult circumstances, going 5-4 in 9 games after the firing of Josh McDaniels. But I just can't help but wonder, of all years, 2 years ago would have been the time to stand pat with an interim coach, which Mark Davis should have done with Rich Bisaccia in hindsight. Now this year, when you've got an unprecedented array of options, we haven't even mentioned Pete Carroll. There's so many great options out there that Pete Carroll doesn't even get discussed. You've got Harbaugh. You've got Vrabel. You've got Belichick. Not that he'd hire Belichick, but there's so many names out there that would be safer than rolling the dice on Antonio Pierce. Because I said, hey, give Pierce a year or two to see what his ceiling is as a head coach. The problem is if you do that, you're not going to have this cluster of great candidates available to hire when you decide, if it turns out that Pierce has a ceiling on his coaching abilities that you didn't know about because you hadn't given him the time to get there.
You know, it is fascinating with those big four names, Mike Florio. Like, I believe Belichick is coaching next year in the NFL. I believe Jim Harbaugh is coaching next year in the NFL. Carroll, I'd be surprised at this point. And I don't know what to make of Mike Vrabel either. Like, I think Mike Vrabel's a really good coach, but I could see him waiting another year.
I think Seattle is one to watch with Vrabel.
Agreed.
I also still think the Raiders. And Carroll, who knows what's going to happen with Carroll? You know, it may just be that there's so many options out there. It just takes time for everyone to process it and understand it and make up their plan. We're only a week removed from that chaos of last week when you have Carroll and Vrabel and Belichick available, and then you throw in the Saban retirement, which is irrelevant to the NFL coaching search, but it just made everything feel more historic and seismic as football goes. Maybe someone will, come around on Carroll. Maybe someone will realize Vrabel's the guy we need to be locked on. We're so focused on this name and that name and this name and that name and lining up these interviews, and we're talking to this guy, we're talking to that guy. Sometimes the obvious thing gets overlooked for a while, and then you realize, what are we thinking here? Why aren't we making this move? Let's get serious about Vrabel. Let's get serious about Harbaugh, or maybe even let's get serious about Carroll. I'm a firm believer that if the Buccaneers had lost on Monday night to the Eagles, and frankly, I think one team played in that game like it wanted to keep its coach and the other team didn't. But if the Bucs had lost that game, I wouldn't have been surprised if the Glazer family, who has a history of going after big names, would have tried to get somebody like Carroll down there for a few years.
Now, just wondering, is McDermott definitely safe in Buffalo? Because we're still trying to figure out if there will be any other openings. Like, Bills lose this weekend to the Chiefs. Do you think there's any chance Sean McDermott gets fired?
I'd be stunned at this point because they turned it around. They bottomed out after that Broncos loss on Monday Night Football, fired Ken Dorsey, even though he had nothing to do with extra guys on the field for the field goal attempt that went awry. But still, they turned it around. The move to Joe Brady worked. I think that they've done enough to put out any and all flames of potential change in Buffalo. The one I'm watching is when the Chiefs season ends, is Andy Reid going to retire?
Oh, wow.
He has said he's not thinking about it. And I guess the smart aleck would say, well, there's nothing to think about if you've already decided you're going to do it. But I think there's reason to believe the Chiefs have the possibility on their radar screen. We'll find out when the season ends. A lot of times, guy keeps his mouth shut until it's all said and done. He doesn't want to be the story. He doesn't want to be the focal point. He doesn't want it to be the issue. Although I could say at some level, the closer they get to the Super Bowl, if guys start thinking maybe Andy Reid would walk away, that gives them the extra little kick to let him walk out with a trophy. But we'll see. But that's going into Wild Card weekend, I was looking at Philly, Dallas, Tampa, Pittsburgh, and Kansas City. And now we've trimmed out Pittsburgh. We've trimmed out Dallas. We're likely trimming out Philly. The Bucs won. The last one I'm watching is Kansas City.
And could you imagine if that job opens up? That would instantly become the most coveted job in the sport with Mahomes.
That's what I've been saying. Ever since I caught wind of the possibility that the Chiefs are bracing for Reid leaving, not saying he will, but I think there's reason to believe the Chiefs have it on the radar screen. Mahomes, there's only one, and the Chiefs have him. So if you're Mike Vrabel, who played for the Chiefs for the final 2 years of his career, if you're Bill Belichick, if you're Jim Harbaugh, if you're one of these great coaches with options, you kind of want to play it out. And maybe at some level you're kind of hoping that they lose sooner than later because you don't want to ride this all the way out until February 11 if the Chiefs make it to the Super Bowl.
Mike Florio, last thing I'll ask you from Pro Football Talk, always does a great job with us right here on the Zach Gelb Show. Let's just say the Chiefs don't become open. Is Harbaugh definitely going to wind up with the Chargers? That where you feel like is his most likely destination?
I don't know because the Falcons have interviewed him. There may be other teams that are lurking. He may be taking full advantage of this leverage he now has. There's been reporting about some requests he's made from Michigan that I think are probably beyond what Michigan can do. Now maybe he's looking for a way to leave with a clean conscience, and that's the way to do it. You make an offer that they can't accept. But I heard something today that maybe the Chargers, not as sure of a thing as we kind of were starting to think it was. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you got to negotiate a contract, and there's contours to it. There's money involved. You got to have a team that's willing to pay the price, give up the power, whatever it may be, to get that head coach. And Harbaugh's never had more leverage than he has right now. He's been in the mix each of the last 2 years. He thought he was getting the Vikings job. He didn't. He interviewed with the Broncos last year. That didn't go his way. This year, he's the guy. From his perspective, how can you not justify having the attitude? I should be able to get whatever I want. I'm the guy. I won the national championship, and all these teams are interested in me. I want what I want. We'll see if someone offers him what he wants and if he does make the jump to the NFL. I feel like if he's ever going to do it, though, it's now. He's 60. He's never going to be in a better position to make the leap, and he's tormented by the fact that he lost the Super Bowl to his brother 12 years ago.
Yeah, I'm just trying to wrap my head around the whole Reed thing going back to that. Like, out of 100%, like, how likely do you think that is that Reed walks away?
I don't know. But there's reason to believe the Chiefs have it on their radar screen that he could.
Gotcha.
So I don't know what he's going to do. And you know what happened? This was a great point someone made to me when we got to the point where we had all this crazy speculation about who's going to do what, and is Mike Tomlin going to walk away? Who else might walk away? A lot of people, when they find themselves in a difficult season and it's stressful and they're tired, you say things that you don't ultimately do. You make comments to people that make them say, man, he's thinking about retiring. And then when it's over and it's done, you take a little time and you say, all right, let's go. I'm ready. I'm ready to get back on the horse. Now, Nick Saban, he decided it was time. But a lot of times before you get to the point where you walk away, you feel like I'm just going to get through this and then I'm done. And then when it's done, you're not ready to be done. That's something to keep in mind. So even if there's any thoughts, discussions, family conversations about Reed walking away, it's one thing to have those conversations before the season ends. Once they end, it's a different conversation altogether because it's real.
Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk. Tell people real quickly, the floor is yours, my friend, about Father of Mine, how they can get a copy of it.
Well, I appreciate that. Father of Mine is a mob novel that I wrote set back in 1973 based on actual events. My dad was a bookie connected to the mob in the small town I grew up in, so that's the starting point. Everything is fictional beyond that. You can get the ebook now for a mere $3.99. $3.99. There is absolutely nothing. I made the argument all week last week. There's nothing you can buy for $5.99 when I was trying to get people to get peacocks for the Chiefs-Dolphins game, so I'd get my paycheck last week. This week I can definitely say there is absolutely nothing you can buy for $3.99 other than the ebook Father of Mine. You can get it on Amazon right now.
You know what I take from this conversation just on the tail end? That Florio is connected. So therefore, you go after him on Twitter, get prepared to be whacked.
I have no comment.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. All the best.
See you.
There he is, Mike Florio, joining us from Pro Football Talk. Is there a chance that Andy Reid joins Nick Saban in retirement? Are we living in a world where next year, we know Pete Carroll's not coaching the Seahawks. We know Bill Belichick's not coaching the Patriots. We know Nick Saban is not coaching at Alabama, even though he still has an office with the Crimson Tide. Are we about to see Andy Reid walk away? We'll discuss when we return in 5 minutes on the Zach Gelb Show.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Before we continue the conversation that we were about to have, let me just tell you, you can stream the NFL on Westwood One for free, sponsored by AutoZone. All season long, you can listen to every Westwood One broadcast of the NFL Live on the NFL app by asking Alexa to open Westwood One Sports on the Odyssey app. Get in the zone, AutoZone. AutoZone's free battery testing and charging is available for free at your local AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Restrictions apply. So what Florio just said about Andy Reid, I think is very interesting. I'm not telling you it's going to happen. I do lean on the side that it's more likely than not that Andy Reid will be back in Kansas City next year. But I do think it's fascinating that Mike Florio brought up when I asked him about Sean McDermott. All right, we got through wild card weekend. Eagles go down. The Cowboys go down. Everyone kind of thought, okay, McCarthy's going to get fired. Sirianni going to get fired. At least one of those two were going to get fired. Now we know McCarthy's back. Now it appears, nothing official yet, that Sirianni is going to be back. He brings up, okay, if Tampa Bay were to have lost last weekend, there was a chance that maybe the Bucs would have made a home run swing and got rid of Todd Bowles and tried to go get someone else. But he said the name that he is looking at, when I brought up the Bills, and I don't think Sean McDermott's going to get fired. I think the Pagula family likes him too much, and I think him and Brandon Beane are too close to do that after he saved a sinking ship and got him back to sailing, and we'll see how far the Bills can sail to this year. I thought it was very interesting that he just brought up the Kansas City Chiefs, and he said just monitor Andy Reid. Now, let me play you this. Was this from last week? Yeah, it was right after the Saban stuff happened, right? Belichick got let go as the coach of the Patriots, and Andy Reid was asked about the possibility of him retiring.
I haven't even thought about that, Nate. I mean, I'm thinking about one thing. I've figured that would come up when you guys were asking these questions, because I'm old. So, but not that old.
So that answer, once again, the key word in this segment is interesting. That wasn't a no. He just said he hasn't thought about it. So if you haven't thought about it, you probably wouldn't do it, one would infer. But maybe you think about it at the end of the year and you think about retiring. Now, Reid is 65. And I believe his contract is through 2026. Now, it doesn't matter. You can walk away whenever you want. And he's had a great coaching career where for a while he was one of those guys that was viewed as a very good coach but couldn't get over the hump. In Philadelphia, all those NFC title games, only won one of them, lost the Super Bowl, where his offense was moving about as slow as molasses as they were trying to come back from down 10 points up against the Pats in that February 2005 Super Bowl in Jacksonville. And then he goes to Kansas City, and now he's been to 3 Super Bowls with Kansas City, and he's won 2 Super Bowls. With Mahomes being this young and not even having a great roster this year, and being in the Final 8, and potentially after this weekend being in the Final 4, and who knows, maybe they're playing the Super Bowl this year. Maybe they win the whole thing. If they win it, I think there's a chance he could walk away. But I don't think the Chiefs are going to win it. And I'm not saying you have to go out with the Lombardi Trophy, but when you were that close yet so far for so many years, and now you have the guy that's always going to keep you in it. I know a lot of people look at 65 as close to an age when you start to think of retirement. It's different in coaching. It is. And I could see Andy Reid saying, all right, let me go win another one. Let me go win another one. Let me see how many I could go get in the next year to 5 years. Like, I'm not telling you Andy Reid's going to coach north of 5 more seasons, but I would be surprised if he walks away. But let's say you win it this year, or even if you don't, like Andy Reid's going to the Hall of Fame. He's done everything that he could in the NFL. But I don't think this is like Saban in college where he got fed up right with NIL and the transfer portal. I don't think there's a lot to get fed up with Andy Reid outside of not having a legit number 1 wide receiver right now. So let's just do this real quickly. We have Florio once again. Mike Florio joined us to start off this hour. If you're just tuning in, Mike Florio bringing up the possibility. Never said it's something going to happen, but just the possibility, something to monitor about Andy Reid's future. Listen up.
The one I'm watching is when the Chiefs season ends, is Andy Reid going to retire?
Oh, wow.
He has said he's not thinking about it, and I guess the smart aleck would say, well, there's nothing to think about if you've already decided you're going to do it. But I think there's reason to believe the Chiefs have the possibility on their radar screen. We'll find out when the season ends. You know, a lot of times, guy keeps his mouth shut until it's all said and done. He doesn't want to be the story. He doesn't want to be the focal point. He doesn't want it to be the issue. Although I could say at some level, the closer they get to the Super Bowl, if guys start thinking maybe Andy Reid would walk away, that gives them the extra little kick to let him walk out with a trophy.
That would be something. It really would. And Florio lays it out perfectly. You never want to be the distraction as a coach. You know, unless you are Coach K, where you wanted the bow down tour and you wanted everyone to genuflect to you and give you all the gifts and things like that. But in the NFL, it's about limiting the distractions. And like if you would have told me a week ago that Belichick would be gone from New England, I would believe it. If you would have told me a week ago that Nick Saban would have retired from Alabama, would not have believed it. If you would have told me Pete Carroll would have been out in Seattle, would not have believed it. And now, heading into this week, if you were to tell me at the end of this Chiefs playoff run, at least it's something on the Chiefs' radar that Andy Reid could retire, and maybe he's not back next year. Like, if you would have told me we would have been talking about this on the show today, would have never believed it. I wouldn't have. But Florio is very well connected in the NFL, and he said it's just something to monitor. It's something to watch, and he's spot on. You go back to that denial of Reid when talking about retirement. Oh, I knew this was come up when Nick Saban retired, blah, 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 blah. And he goes, I haven't thought about it. If you actually aren't going to, it would have been a direct no. But he just said he hasn't thought about it. So maybe it's something to monitor, but I would still be surprised. I would be maybe even a little more than just surprised, like very surprised, if Andy Reid does not return next year as the Chiefs coach, and let's say he retires. And then if that's the case, it's like, who didn't already take a job with the Big Four? In Belichick, who I still think will go to the Falcons, in Pete Carroll, in Mike Vrabel, and Jim Harbaugh. This has already been the craziest coaching cycle and the craziest 2 weeks of coaching news that I've ever seen. Starts with Carroll getting let go, Saban then retiring, right? You had Vrabel, who's not in the same category as those other guys, but still a very good coach. He gets axed in Tennessee. And then, boom, Belichick, it was speculated, he gets let go as well. Could be adding a fifth to that chapter. Andy Reid walking away. I think it's more likely that he's back in Kansas City next year than he's not. But it is something to monitor when Mike Florio does bring it up. How about that audio from Mike Florio, who just joined us a few moments ago on CBS Sports Radio. All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show. We'll take a timeout. We'll come on back. We'll wrap up the show out in style with a little news brief. I'll update you some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. But let's get the latest CBS Sports Radio update first. And anytime there's coaching news and it involves a team that wears red, Richard Ackerman has a big play in his playbook. And that's to wear, what is that, a sweater?
Sweater, yes.
A red sweater. When Nick Saban retired, you were wearing a red sweater.
This is correct.
When Mike Florio is speculating that maybe you need to monitor Andy Reid retiring, you're wearing a red sweater.
Or Bill Belichick meeting with the Falcons again.
As well.
I like the Falcons red rather than the Falcons black.
Ack is well connected, by the way. Ack is very well connected, and I think, because you're not a let's go break news, let's be a Schefter, let's be an Ian Rappaport, but Ack gets told a lot of things. And I think the way that Ack tells us what he's getting told is by wearing the colors of the team that it involves.
It's got that mental telepathy working,
So wait, you like the Falcons, what was the color take?
The Falcons red.
Over the black uniforms?
Yes, the original Falcons uniforms.
Okay. I kind of like those black Falcons uniforms.
Nah, I was never a big fan.
But you're a big uniform guy.
I am and I'm a big traditional uniform
You
guy.
are. See,
yes.
You freak out, I would imagine, when teams wear uniforms that you're like, ugly.
Oh.
It doesn't bother me.
Oh, it drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Especially a team with a uniform that I like when, like, the Knicks uniforms or the Celtics uniforms, they're so traditional, and the Celtics are wearing, black uniforms, the green and gold uniform. I'm like, what is this?
Well, who was it? The Tennessee Titans a few weeks back?
The Houston Oilers.
Did that annoy you?
Oh, I love the old Oilers.
But did it annoy you that they were wearing the uniform?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No.
Gotcha.
And I'd like to see the Pittsburgh Steelers go back to the original numbers.
What's the ugliest uniform that you've ever seen?
The ugly? I'd have to think. Off the top of my head, it's just,
Do you have a favorite uniform?
In the NFL, it's the Steelers. Always love the old Steelers.
Here we go.
I'm a traditional guy. Baseball, I like the Dodgers. I do like the Met uniforms.
I like the powder blue Chargers uniforms. That could be my favorite uniform ever.
You know what? I do like the powder blue Chargers, but I love the Dan Fouts royal blue Chargers.
Okay.
That's a great one too. Even though I'm not a big fan of teal, I do like the Dolphins, the original Dolphins uniforms. Those are good too.
Gotcha. I feel like we could do a whole segment with that on what uniforms he likes, what uniform he hates. That's a clean antithesis. Like, I see people lose their mind on Twitter and social media about uniforms. The only uniforms that ever annoyed me are in the NBA, those like T-shirt jerseys that they wear with like the sleeves. I just think they look horrible. That's the only time I think a uniform looks bad.
Yeah, I'm there with you on that. So, the Oklahoma City Thunder, I'm not a. I'm just, they got to do something. They got to do something with the Oklahoma City. It's
all right.
It's not going. It's just not going.
Act like Oklahoma City as much as Kevin Durant.
No, I love Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I just don't. I don't know those uniforms. They don't do it for me.
How'd you say his name?
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Nice to hear an update anchor here at CBS Sports Radio say his name correctly.
So why? How did people?
There was a younger update anchor that say Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or something like that.
Nope.
Ack is always on top of his game. All right, let's get another award-winning CBS Sports Radio update with a man that we need to monitor his wardrobe, because whatever shirt he's wearing and the color of that shirt, it will tell us something. Little Windhorse fingers will tell us something about a coach's future. Here he is, the Ack Man, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flag.
Well, things are progressing between the Falcons and Bill Belichick, who will reportedly interview the former Patriots coach for a second time this weekend after a one-on-one meeting earlier with Arthur Blank. Well, former Titans coach Mike Vrabel has reportedly interviewed with the Chargers regarding their vacancy. He also could meet with the Falcons as well. The Steelers are going to bring in some competition for quarterback Kenny Pickett. Head coach Mike Tomlin said that, and that they're also going to look outside the organization for their next offensive coordinator. Tomlin, meanwhile, has another year left on his deal, but is open to staying longer in Pittsburgh, where he's now been for the last 17 years. The Knicks trade with the Raptors has worked out well for both teams thus far. The Knicks have to be thrilled with their end. OG Anunoby is fit like a glove. They've won 7 of 9 since he joined the lineup and are now 5th in the East. They're coming off a win last night when Jalen Brunson returned and everything was clicking, and they'll try to build on it tonight when the 7-32 Wizards come to the Garden. The Raptors continue to reshape their team, dealing Pascal Siakam yesterday. His departure didn't hurt as they beat the Heat by 24. Toronto goes for back-to-back wins tonight against the Bulls at home, while the Pacers welcome their newest acquisition when they meet the Kings in Sacramento. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, it's Amy Lawrence. Be sure to listen to CBS Sports Radio at home. Just ask Alexa to play CBS Sports Radio.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick. We're the Backstreet Boys, and you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, wrapping up shop on this Thursday. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We'll get to a news brief in just a second, but let me bang out a call first. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Let's go to Jake in Texas. He's been holding patiently. He's next up on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Jake, what do you say?
Hey, Zach. Thanks for taking my call. Love the show.
Appreciate it.
Just wanted to say something about Jerry Jones and Mike McCarthy, Dak Prescott. You know, I've been a lifelong Cowboys fan, and Florio is correct. You'd have to go all the way back to 2002 to find a year when Jerry Jones let go of a coach before his contract was up. Now, that being said, I think that, you know, come May, Trey Lance has to have his fifth-year option picked up. Now, I know everyone's going to laugh when I say Trey Lance, but if by the end of May, if they do not pick up his fifth-year option, then you kind of know, okay, well, maybe they're thinking Prescott, you know, they'll extend him. But it's going to be a very interesting offseason. This is a contract year for McCarthy. I don't think Jerry extends him unless they do really well. And he doesn't have a problem with openly putting his team and players on the hot seat. And he's not afraid to let go of a star like Des Bryant or Tony Romo. You know, when the time comes, he'll let it happen.
The only thing that's tricky here, Jake, is the contract, because there's $59 million on, you know, for the salary cap space for this year when it comes to Dak Prescott. That's the cap hit. The only way you can move that around is if you give him an extension. So, like, I hear what you're saying. I don't think it's going to be Trey Lance, but, like, maybe if they wanted to move up in the draft from, they're 23-24 to try to get in the top 10 and get the quarterback, okay. And then it's okay. 1 year you have to bite the bullet, but I do kind of think what Mike said ends up being the reality here is where you're going to have to hold your nose, and Dak's done enough to get a new contract, but you never think he's probably going to win a Super Bowl with you.
Yeah, I hate to say it, man. Lifelong Cowboys fan, but yeah, I just don't think he's the guy to get it done.
You got it.
We'll see.
And I don't think you're wrong. I don't think McCarthy wins in Dallas, and I don't think Dak Prescott wins in Dallas as well. Good phone call, Jake. Appreciate you. Let's get to a little news brief. We'll update you some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. All right, now.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
If Bill Belichick was still the coach of the Patriots and he was asked about the team's draft plans, he would say, we're going to go through our draft process, and we'll make what's in the best decision for the best interest of the team. That's what the hoodie would say. Gerard Mayo lets on a little bit more. Let's listen up to my new head football coach.
I'm very excited. What I will say is this. We're going to draft the best player for a position that is very important. You put the pieces together.
The way I take that, Caleb Williams going 1 to the Bears. Drake May probably going 2 to the Commanders. And welcome in Heisman Trophy winner from LSU. And also, let's not forget Arizona State. Got to pay attention to Moist Mike's team. And that's going to be Jaden Daniels winding up in New England. Let's go to Mickey Loomis, the general manager of the New Orleans Saints. He defends Dennis Allen's record.
Bill Belichick. Here's his first 3 seasons. 6-10, 7-9, 7-9. Tom Landry, 0-11, 4-9, 5-8, 4-10, 5-8. Hall of Fame coaches, all of them. Bill Walsh, first year, 2-14. Second year, 6-10. So I think the easy thing to do is just look at the results and say, oh, no, we've got to have a change. You got to look beyond that. What are the reasons why we were 9-8 instead of, 13-4? And look, it's collective. It's the players. It's the coaches. It's me. It's our personnel staff, our roster. It's variables sometimes that we don't have any control of. And so my assessment is Dennis Allen is a good coach. I think sometimes the hard thing to do is to be patient and recognize your other shortcomings and get those fixed, and that's what we're doing.
So, number one, I don't get how you're a serious executive and you go to a press conference with a wad of gum in your mouth. All right? That's number one. Number two.
Is that another PSA?
Yeah, sure. That is. You can't be holding a press conference with gum in your mouth. Number two. I love how conveniently he forgets the Raiders years, where Dennis Allen was 4-12, 4-12, 0-4, then fired, and he only talks about 7-10, 9-8. You got to give some time. I'm not even saying Dennis Allen should be fired. I don't think you win a Super Bowl with Dennis Allen, but this should have been gifted to you that you should have won the NFC South this year, and you couldn't even win this division. So, stop trying to make him out to be this great coach, and you're on this foundation of all-time great coaches, and you're on this track. You made a decision. Don't sound like a jackass when you're trying to defend that decision, and just say you simply believe he is the best coach for this team in 2024. Less is more. All right? That's all you got to do here. Instead, it's oh, jeez. Man. McCarthy earlier today would have been better off saying nothing. Mickey Loomis would have been better off saying nothing as well. Just keep on putting your foot in your mouth. It's ridiculous. By the way, let's listen up to Mike McCarthy. Defends his playoff record. Here's Mike McCarthy bloviating.
We have established a championship program. It's just not the world championship yet. We know how to win. We know how to train to win. We have the right people, but we have not crossed the threshold of winning playoff games. And it's extremely disappointing to be sitting here talking about it. But I know how to win, and we will get over that threshold. I have total confidence in it, and that's why I'm standing here today.
No, you're standing here today because the owner said you're back. That's why. We have a championship culture, just not a world championship culture. So you don't have a championship culture. Unless you're just saying you have an NFC East championship culture. You know what? I need to get out of sports talk radio. I do. I need to become a PR person. and I need to train coaches and general managers how to not sound like a jackass while talking to the media. That should be my next calling. This doesn't work out, I'll go do that for a living. Here is Mike Tomlin. Here's his apology for walking out of the press conference right after their playoff loss to Buffalo when he was asked about his contract. He did a media availability today and had this to say about his future.
Good afternoon. In a little better mood today, man. Anybody got any contract questions? I'll say this. I certainly could have handled that situation better than I did, but I'll also say this. I just believe there's a time and place for everything, and post-game press conferences are probably not the place to address contract issues and things of that nature.
Mike Tomlin could be the best talker in the NFL. He's so smooth, too. He just apologized. Hey, how everyone doing? He knows that he's going to get an onslaught of questions. He doesn't usually say a lot. He speaks for a long amount of time, but it's not a lot of details that he's giving you. But every time he speaks, I'm just like, yep. No, I agree with this guy saying. No, I like this guy a lot. Here is Mike Tomlin, though. And this one I don't love that much. Maybe Chris in California does, though. Biggest Kenny Pickett fan on the planet, besides his relatives. So Chris may be a relative of Kenny Pickett. Here's Mike Tomlin and Kenny Pickett.
I'm extremely confident in him. I feel stronger about some of the intangible things than I did, obviously, when we first started doing business with him because I have evidence of it. He's highly competitive and professional. He doesn't run from challenges. He runs to challenges. I think that's evident in the way he plays, particularly at the end of close football games. He's got good framework to work with, and for a young guy, he's mature beyond his years. I'm excited about him.
Is he at the point in his career now where some of the improvement has to be tangible, not just...
Certainly, it's a big year for him. We acknowledge that. It is a huge year for him.
So he's going to be their guy next year, even though Deontay Johnson the other day when talking to a reporter was saying he hopes that Mason Rudolph wins the job this upcoming season. So does Kenny really have the trust of the locker room? Oh, he has the trust of his head coach. I don't think Kenny Pickett is the guy. I think he's just a guy in the NFL. And this is a make or break season. Some could argue that he shouldn't get that right, and neither should Mason Rudolph. I believe they should bring in an established quarterback and try to take advantage of this defense. But Mike Tomlin's telling you, we're going to do it my way. We believe in Kenny Pickett. We're going to give him this year, and we're going to see what he could do. All righty, that's a news brief. Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio. Good to be back today after being out sick yesterday. We will be back tomorrow. Big Football Friday show. It's wild. The last 2 weeks, we have all these playoff games, wild card round, divisional round, and there's just been so much with the coaching cycle. With last week, with Saban retiring, Carroll getting fired, Belichick getting fired, Vrabel getting fired. This week, what's going to happen with the Cowboys? What's going to happen with the Philadelphia Eagles? You get to Friday, and it's like, we got games to talk about. So we'll spend a lot of time talking about the games tomorrow and get you set for divisional round weekend as we trim 8 teams down to 4 teams. So Greg Williams will stop by tomorrow. Ryan Horvat will stop by tomorrow. Moist Mike will be here. Stuart Kovacs will be here. And each and every one of you will be here as well, including yours truly. Thanks so much for tuning in. We out. Talk tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern. Bye-bye. Peace.